If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 26, Heartfelt Song. Lucas was currently in disbelief, his expression carried a sense of confusion. He muttered, "Is it just a lucid dream or?" He was definitely not high on substance or something, but he really felt like he was transported to another place, Blue John Canyon, and the memory was still fresh in his mind. Usually, even in lucid dreams, he wouldn't be able to remember so clearly. So basically, the original owner of this current body of his, Lucas Knight, was actually in the deep recesses of his consciousness. After that, the real Lucas Knight finally bid farewell for good. Lucas looked at his clothes that were drenched in sweat. His forehead also had sweat flowing down naturally, and his breathing, initially heavy when he woke up, was now becoming stable. Lucas went to take a shower, and afterward, he examined himself in the bathroom mirror. His upper body was exposed, revealing some muscles, although not as developed as those of someone who exercises regularly. Then, Lucas vividly recalled Lucas Knight disappearing from his consciousness. Although Lucas felt remorse for the real Lucas Knight departing to the afterworld, he also experienced a sense of relief. He didn't want someone from his consciousness peeping at his current activities, as it would strip away any sense of privacy and make him uncomfortable. However, Lucas needed to confirm if what happened was real or just a dream. That's why he stood in front of the mirror again, looked at his face, closed his eyes, and immersed himself in the character of Aaron Ralston, following the character description in the paper. After 10 minutes, Lucas still didn't feel anything like he had experienced before. That can't be right. My instincts tell me that I really possess abilities similar to those characters in the movie Inception. There's no way such a vivid experience could be just a lucid dream. Lucas is quite certain it was not just a dream, what he experienced was undeniably real. His instincts, his memory, his body all bear witness to such an experience. This means that his ability to enter the deep recesses of his consciousness can assist him in his acting career. Maybe I still don't fully understand this ability of mine, and perhaps I can instinctively activate it or just randomly activate it. But whatever it is, I'll have to try to activate that ability. Lucas feels his heartbeat quicken. He is excited. Lucas knew that if he could awaken such an ability, it would tremendously improve his acting skills. For now, maybe I'll rest. I'll try activating it again tomorrow. Lucas went to bed, and due to his exhaustion, he fell asleep without realizing it. Early in the morning at 8 a.m., Lucas visited Liza's restaurant as usual. He worked until around 11 a.m. before informing Liza that his flight was approaching. Sigh. I'll miss you, Lucas. Just do your best in the audition. Lucas smiled at Liza's encouraging words. My man, I wish you all the best. Lucas nodded to Leonard, and as he was about to leave the restaurant, he heard Liza calling out. Wait, Lucas. We heard from Samantha that you can sing. And until now, we still haven't seen you perform at all. Before you go, can you sing us a song? Lucas turned his head towards Liza, smiled, and said, Of course. Liza has been treating him quite well so far, and Lucas thought that Liza deserved to listen to one of his favorite songs. He doesn't have the guitar, cousin, Leonard reminded, and Liza also realized it, saying, Oops. I forgot about that. It's okay. I'll perform the song without the guitar. Leonard and Liza were a bit surprised. How could that be? Won't it affect your performance? No. It's okay, Liza. Lucas didn't really need the guitar, he believed that his voice alone could do the work. Lucas hummed the tone of the song he had in mind, and Liza and Leonard heard that even with just humming, the sound felt beautiful. I'm going under, and this time I fear there's no one to save me. Lucas sang in a low, breathy whisper, almost inaudible at first, yet the tone of his voice conveyed despair, loss, and a sinking feeling with each word. This all or nothing really has a way of driving me crazy, Lucas sang in a breathy whisper. Liza and Leonard listened attentively as Lucas continued, I need somebody to heal, somebody to know, somebody to have, somebody to hold, it's easy to say. The tone in Lucas's voice had a glimmer of hope fighting through the pain, reaching out desperately. Liza and Leonard felt goosebumps as they listened, especially when Lucas sang in a more rhythmic manner, seemingly building momentum with each repetition of somebody. They listened as it got slightly louder and dropped back down to despair. But it's never the same. I guess I kinda liked the way you helped me escape, Lucas sang, and his voice raised slightly. Then, without warning, Lucas revealed the bubbling anger beneath the surface. He raised his voice, now the day bleeds into nightfall, and you're not here to get me through it all, and then you pulled the rug. It was louder and more insistent, mirroring the emotional struggle. I was getting kinda used to being someone you loved, Lucas sang with full and powerful emotion before delivering the bridge once more with a tone of vulnerability, admitting to naivety and longing for comfort that's now gone. I was getting kinda used to being someone you loved, Lucas sang the line once more in a booming voice, before delivering it with a final desperate cry, as if clinging to memories fading away, and I tend to close my eyes when it hurts sometimes. I fall into your arms, I'll be safe in your sound till I come back around. Then Lucas sang the chorus with deeper despair and acceptance creeping in but fighting back, for now the day bleeds into nightfall, and you're not here to get me through it all. I let my guard down, and then you pulled the rug. I was getting used to being someone you loved. But now the day bleeds into nightfall. Lucas sang with a trembling voice, cracking on bleeds, nightfall, and guard down. He emphasized the final loved with lingering pain. Lucas finished performing and looked at Liza and Leonard. What do you think, guys? Lucas asked, but he noticed that Liza and Leonard seemed to be in disbelief. Hello. Lucas waved his hands in front of their vision, feeling a bit worried. The moment Liza and Leonard snapped out of their deep thoughts, they praised him like never before. That's amazing, Lucas. You should definitely become a singer. Liza grasped Lucas's hands in excitement. I agree. Leonard nodded and said, seriously, dude. I have never heard such a song before. As he spoke, he could still feel goosebumps from hearing Lucas sing the song just now. Lucas felt somewhat helpless as he looked at the two excited people. He excused himself since his flight was near. Liza and Leonard didn't stop Lucas, accompanying him to the exit. Watching Lucas depart, Leonard remarked, that song he just performed. It's a heartbreak song, right? It's obvious, Liza nodded. Samantha also told me that Lucas performed a heartbreak song in the bar. Maybe it was the same song. It seems like Lucas experienced a deep, wrenching heartbreak to be able to compose such a song. Leonard nodded and sighed, poor guy. Lucas was unaware that he was being misunderstood by the people close to him. He just felt fortunate enough that he performed the song in Liza's office. If he had performed it near a few customers, he would likely have been insisted on singing more, just like in the bar. Lucas performed the song exclusively for Liza. His rendition, particularly singing his favorite song, served as a heartfelt expression of gratitude towards her. Song, Someone You Loved by Louis Capaldi. Unlike the chapter where Lucas sang Wonderwall, I reduced the people's thoughts about the song and wrote the song lyrics more smoothly with flow. This is in consideration of the readers, and there aren't many people listening to Lucas sing, which is why I didn't delve deeper into the listeners' feelings and emotions. Please share your thoughts on this format. Chapter 27, Indie Darling Fox Searchlight. The airplane from New York had just reached the Los Angeles International Airport. The place was quite busy and bustling as usual, it was such a busy airport. Inside, the terminal bustles with a symphony of languages and accents. Businessmen tap away on laptops, their suits slightly rumpled after long flights. Young backpackers clutching tattered Lonely Planets mingle with families herding sleepy kids and overflowing strollers. A gaggle of teenagers in ripped jeans and band tees blast pop music from their phones, their laughter bouncing off the high ceilings. The air hangs heavy with a blend of jet fuel, coffee, and nervous perspiration. Announcements crackle overhead, a multilingual chorus guiding people to their gates. The smell of airport food carts adds a salty, greasy spice to the mix, competing with the faint aroma of jasmine from flowers nestled among the sterile potted palms. Lucas exited the airport with a smile, feeling more alive than ever. He had just reactivated his ability to delve into the deep recesses of his consciousness. Surprisingly, while embodying the character of Aaron Ralston, Lucas found himself wearing the same clothing as Aaron, enhancing his immersion in the adventurous yet wonderful feelings Aaron experienced exploring the canyon as if meditating. This experience was truly remarkable for Lucas, even though he could only stay in that state for 10 minutes before returning to reality. Though he didn't fully portray Aaron Ralston, it was sufficient for Lucas. In his next journey into the depths of consciousness, he planned to directly act or emulate the scene where Aaron accidentally gets his right arm stuck in the chuck stone. While Lucas might intentionally create this situation, he aimed to be fully immersed in the character, appearing genuinely careless and clueless about the impending tragedy he unknowingly brought upon himself. Lucas hailed a taxi to head to Century City. As he boarded, memories of Sean crossed Lucas's mind. He wondered how that guy was faring. The taxi's worn leather seat pressed against Lucas's skin as it navigated the LA afternoon heat. Palm trees blurred past outside the window, their shadows dancing on the cracked dashboard. Los Angeles buzzed with frenetic energy, amplified through the taxi's scratchy speakers blaring classic rock. The cityscape shifted from sun-soaked beaches to towering billboards emblazoned with movie stars' faces. Lucas craned his neck, observing the billboards. Notably, Leonardo DiCaprio's eyes seemed to stare down at him from a tall building. Lucas observed the billboards briefly before realizing the taxi was approaching his destination. The taxi rattled to a stop under the awning of an unassuming building. While Century Fox Searchlight lacked the grandeur of its studio siblings, the air crackled with the quiet electricity of ambition. Lucas disembarked from the taxi and glanced around. Finally, Lucas muttered as he approached the building. While walking, his mind couldn't help but wonder. In his previous life, 127 Hours was announced in November 2009, but in this world, it seemed much earlier, though he wasn't entirely sure of the details. Curious as he was, Lucas didn't dwell too much on it. After all, he found himself in a parallel world with differences from his previous life like the absence of popular bands and songs. Despite these distinctions, Lucas sensed that this world and his former one felt remarkably similar. Lucas entered the building, marveling at the literary haven he found. Sunlight streamed through arched windows, illuminating walls adorned with vintage movie posters and black and white stills. The receptionist, a young woman with a bored expression and a headset glued to her ear, barely glanced up from her computer screen. "Appointment?" she croaked, her voice monotone. Lucas swallowed, his mouth dry from the experience of entering the Fox Searchlight building, the indie darling nestled among Hollywood's glossy giants. After calming himself, Lucas presented the project script for 127 Hours. The receptionist indifferently observed the paper sheets in Lucas's hands, taking a moment to read them closely. Realizing that the young man before her was applying for the main role of 127 Hours, she was a bit surprised. She scrutinized Lucas's face but found nothing particularly special. Without much thought, she said, "You're quite fortunate, the audition deadline for this project is about to reach its end next week." After the young woman provided the information, she directed Lucas to the studio facility where the audition was taking place. Lucas made his way to the studio, observing the inside of the Fox Searchlight along the way. Upon reaching the hall, he noticed several good-looking men seated in arranged seats, appearing to be in a line. Lucas took an unoccupied seat. Donna Isaacson, the casting director for the 127 Hours film project, watched as actor Jesse Eisenberg auditioned for the role of Aaron Ralston. With her seasoned experience, Donna could see that Jesse's portrayal of Aaron Ralston was too weak. Despite being a talented actor, he struggled to convey the depth of Aaron Ralston's character, particularly in the moments when he was trapped in the narrow canyon. Donna's hesitation about Jesse portraying Aaron Ralston extended beyond his performance. His build and body shape didn't align with the appearance of the real Aaron Ralston. Despite Jesse auditioning multiple times, Donna couldn't see why she should choose him for the role. After Jesse Eisenberg finished his audition, the process continued. As Donna observed more, it became apparent that none of the actors vying for the role of Aaron Ralston could authentically convey the experience of being trapped in the narrow canyon. Certainly, it was an exceptionally challenging role, and accurately replicating Aaron Ralston's emotions during the 127 hours trapped in the narrow canyon was nearly impossible. The casting team acknowledged this, recognizing that only Aaron Ralston himself could truly understand that experience. Donna and her team didn't expect actors to perfectly replicate the situation but aimed for someone who could convey at least half of the real emotions Aaron Ralston went through. In an ideal scenario, Donna would have considered casting Daniel Day-Lewis if he were younger, given his exceptional acting skills. Unfortunately, Daniel's age didn't align with the character. However, the casting team was already exploring alternatives in case they couldn't make a decision for the role of Aaron Ralston before the audition deadline. The team considered Cillian Murphy as a suitable actor for the role and had already reached out to him. However, Cillian Murphy was currently busy, and they were willing to wait a bit, recognizing his talent and capabilities. He was, without a doubt, their first choice. In the event that Cillian Murphy was unavailable, James Franco emerged as another potential actor to portray Aaron Ralston. Interestingly, James Franco was already en route to audition for the role. Chapter 28, Nightmare and Lesson. Sunlight bled through the windows of the Fox Searchlight studio. Hollywood churned with its usual manic pulse, oblivious to the drama unfolding within these soundproof walls. Inside, a parade of actors sweated their way through recreations of Aaron Ralston's harrowing ordeal in Blue John Canyon. The studio facility, with the setup of a narrow canyon built from weathered plywood, painted in sun-bleached desert hues. It wasn't grand, but it felt real, an echo of the Utah chasm that trapped Aaron Ralston for 127 agonizing hours. This was the audition space for actors vying to portray Ralston's ordeal. No artificial shadows or theatrical thunder, just the quiet intimacy of plywood walls and the hum of overhead lights. Here, the raw power of the story hung in the air, a silent challenge. The studio welcomed one actor after another, each auditioning for the role of Aaron Ralston. One actor named Jamie launched into Ralston's descent, and the scene transformed into a canyon ballet, mimicking the sensation of his right arm being squeezed by the boulder, a manic glint dancing in his eyes. He wasn't Ralston, trapped and desperate, but a spider ensnared in a flypaper hallucination. Donna scribbled a note, "Too theatrical, lacks grit." Jamie walked out of the studio with a downcast expression. Next came Ben, a burly lumberjack of an actor. He chewed up the scenery with Ralston's desperate pleas, spitting gravel between clenched teeth. Donna winced. "Overkill, Danny. We need someone to crawl under our skin, not bludgeon us with it," she said to the British director. Danny, ever the imp, just grinned, enjoying the spectacle. Lucas saw actors leave the studio with a downcast expression one after the other, and he didn't know why, but he was slightly affected as he felt more and more nervous. Lucas even spotted Jesse Eisenberg, known for notable works such as The Social Network, leaving the studio earlier. While Lucas patiently waited, he attempted to use the free time to delve into the deep recesses of his consciousness. He wasn't concerned about sleeping for 20 minutes, as Lucas had discovered during a previous experience on an airplane passenger seat that time passed much quicker in his consciousness. Therefore, 20 minutes in his consciousness translated to just 20 seconds in the real world. That's why Lucas persisted in attempting to enter his consciousness to embody the role of Aaron Ralston. After 5 minutes of trying, he finally succeeded. Finding himself in a narrow canyon, it resembled the exact place in Blue John Canyon. Lucas observed his hands, which seemed unfamiliar. Immersed in the character, he felt like an avid solo adventurer exploring Blue John Canyon. As he treaded down the passage, joy and peace enveloped him. Treading about the canyon, exploring the relics of the past left behind in the canyon, "This is joy," Lucas muttered in the Aaron Ralston character. He seemingly experienced the character's feelings, as if meditating while exploring the vast canyon. 8 minutes passed in his consciousness, yet Lucas was in no hurry. Finally, after 9 minutes, Lucas treaded down the narrow passages. Below, the passage was barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through, carved by millions of years of water erosion. Whether it was Lucas or Aaron, descending through a series of waterfalls and tight squeezes, it seemed like he clearly enjoyed the solitude and challenge of the remote canyon. Navigating a particularly narrow section, Aaron descended with his hand on a chuck stone. Suddenly, he skidded through the walls, bringing him to a halt. His hand remained on the dislodged boulder, which then loosened and tumbled down the canyon. As Aaron skidded below, thinking it would speed up his descent, he sensed something was amiss. Looking up, he saw a falling stone. He momentarily froze as the stone descended. Even Lucas, engrossed in the character of Aaron Ralston, felt his immersion disrupted. He broke out of character and was no longer Aaron. However, this reaction would be expected from any ordinary human being in such a moment. Lucas felt time dilate, as if he were dreaming, his reactions decelerating into slow motion. The rock smashed against his left hand, registering in Lucas's eyes. He yanked his left arm back as the rock ricocheted, only for the boulder to crush his right hand and ensnare his right arm. The rock slid another foot down the wall with his arm in tow, tearing the skin off the lateral side of his forearm. Lucas remained silent, his disbelief temporarily paralyzing him. He stared at the sight of his arm vanishing into the small gap between the fallen boulder and the canyon wall. Within moments, pain overcame the initial shock. The flaring agony threw Lucas into panic. It felt just like a nightmare. Even though Lucas had anticipated this earlier and prepared himself, it felt too real, the sensation, the fear, the pain. Who am I? Where am I? Wait. I'm Arrow. No, Lucas. This is a dream. He seemed to forget who he was for a moment. Lucas grimaced and was about to growl when he realized that he was back in reality. Lucas still felt the palpable fear, his heart thumping hard as he chased his breath, attracting the attention of the actor beside him. The actor glanced at Lucas for a few seconds before returning to reading the scripts. With dilated eyes, Lucas thought, not real. Not real. Phew. That's more terrifying than I initially thought it would be. He couldn't imagine any sane and ordinary person remaining calm in that moment. At least I gained some insights into how a person would truly feel at that moment, Lucas reflected. In fact, Lucas felt that he could at least display the same level of fear, disbelief, and panic, the emotions he experienced in his consciousness, without needing to fully become Aaron Ralston, simply by being himself. After all, Lucas still vividly remembered it, the sensation, his fear, disbelief, and panic, and most importantly, the pain, the flaring agony. He had never experienced such a thing in his previous life. What he initially felt when the boulder fell, in slow motion, his feelings or emotions were something he couldn't fully describe. Lucas remembered the time slowing down. He didn't know if it was because he was inside his consciousness or if facing death made it possible, but Lucas didn't really care about it. What happened in his consciousness, his attempt to replicate the moment when Aaron accidentally got his right arm stuck at the chuckstone, felt like a nightmare. Lucas was clearly expecting it, but it wasn't exactly what he had anticipated. He even momentarily forgot that he was in his consciousness and not in reality due to how faithfully his consciousness replicated reality. It felt like a dream where he forgot his identity. He didn't know if being inside his head, playing a character, was just like a dream. That's why, in that moment, he momentarily forgot that he was Lucas, and only when he felt the flaring agony did he remember who he was in his consciousness. But Lucas learned his lesson. Next time, he wouldn't be so shocked or momentarily forget his identity and the character he is immersing. Before Lucas knew it, it was finally his turn to audition. He stood up and went into the studio. Chapter 29, Maybe. Lucas entered the studio, and he saw the setup of the soundstage mimicked that of the narrow canyon built with weathered plywood, while the background wall was green. So this is the studio of Fox Searchlight. Lucas muttered as he looked around the studio. This is Fox Searchlight Studio after all, and with Fox Searchlight, the indie darling of Hollywood, Lucas has been dreaming to be able to enter the studio in his previous life, but now, he can finally enter the soundstage of the film studio. In the cool shade cast by the plywood walls, a folding table held the nerve center of the audition. Donna Isaacson, the casting director of 127 Hours, sat perched on a metal folding chair, her gaze sharp as the desert sun. A notepad lay open on her lap, ready to write her evaluation to the actor that auditioned. Beside her, director Danny Boyle, his eyes crinkled with thoughtful concern, leaned back in a battered director's chair. His presence created a quiet hum of expectation. Lucas felt the pressure as the director's eyes focused on him, especially when he noticed Danny Boyle, an Oscar-winning director in February 2009. Your name? Danny Boyle asked Lucas, who stood before them. Lucas's back faced the green screen wall, and with his small-time actor experience, he noticed the camera in the studio capturing his every movement. I'm Lucas Knight, 19 years old, Lucas responded. Danny and Donna exchanged glances, recognizing that the young man before them indeed looked his age, and they weren't surprised by his youth, evident in Lucas's appearance. Mr. Lucas Knight, I don't think you need to perform at all. You look quite young, clearly not suitable for the age of the main character, Donna remarked. Danny nodded, stating, I don't know what got into your head, young man, applying for the role when the project sheet clearly specified an age range of 25-35. Lucas remained composed, responding after a deep breath, please give me a chance, sir and madam. I swear I'll perform the character of Aaron Ralston perfectly. Danny and Donna stared at Lucas, and Danny remarked, your hair is even blonde, and your eyes are blue. Completely different from the requirements. Please give me a chance. Lucas exclaimed, knowing that hair color, eye color, or even age didn't matter in Hollywood. Professional makeup artists could alter his appearance slightly to look older, and with just a few adjustments, Lucas would be good to go. Danny examined Lucas closely, sensing the young man's determination. He turned to Donna, who just shrugged. All right. We'll give you a chance to demonstrate your ability to portray the character of Aaron Ralston, Danny said. The final decision rested on him and the casting director. They didn't need to consider much, even with an average performance, they wouldn't choose him. If Lucas performed poorly, it would be even more unlikely. Picking a young actor with an average or bad performance would be an insult to the real Aaron Ralston. Thank you very much. Lucas expressed his gratitude. Danny and Donna nodded, and Danny instructed, Go on. Prepare your performance. The scene is when Aaron Ralston encounters two fellow travelers. You should be familiar with this from the project sheet, right? Lucas nodded, taking a deep breath and closing his eyes for a few seconds. He would first portray Aaron Ralston before he was trapped in the narrow canyon. This is quite ridiculous. Donna muttered to Danny beside her. Let him have his fun. I've been a young man once, overconfident and all. It's good if his own bad performance bursts his bubble, Danny said in a low voice. Meanwhile, Lucas, with closed eyes, immersed himself in the character. This time, he didn't activate the ability where his consciousness entered the deep recesses. Although the deep immersion had accidentally taken him to the depths of his consciousness in the apartment the first time, now Lucas had gradually understood his power. As long as Lucas didn't intend to portray a character where his consciousness was needed to construct the background, such as recreating the scene where Aaron had the rock fall and smashed down his right arm, Lucas's ability would not activate. In fact, Lucas was gradually becoming accustomed to his ability, which he named Mind Workshop. He wouldn't accidentally activate it like the first time unless he intentionally wanted to, a process that might take a few minutes. Danny and Donna observed as Lucas opened his eyes, witnessing a significant change in the inexperienced, overconfident young man. It seemed as though his soul had been replaced, sensing a remarkable shift in his temperament. Poised before the casting table, Lucas stood tall, shoulders squared, like a desert willow rooted in sand. His eyes scanned the imaginary canyon's mouth. A flicker of hope danced on his seemingly weathered face. Danny and Donna were both surprised by this incredible transformation in Lucas. He could convey a story through expressions and movements. The scene Lucas performed depicted Aaron Ralston before getting stuck in the narrow canyon. It was the moment when Aaron stumbled upon two fellow travelers. Although Danny and Donna couldn't physically see it, they sensed Lucas imagining two figures emerging in his vision. As Lucas's posture subtly shifted, his spine straightened, a gentle arch in his back like a cat basking in warmth. A genuine and unguarded smile bloomed on his face, transforming him from a lone adventurer into a welcoming presence. He raised a hand in a casual wave, the gesture as natural as the wind rustling through the canyon's veins. Hey there! His voice called out, a touch of rugged charm in its timbre. It wasn't a booming hail but a friendly melody carried on the wind, inviting the imaginary newcomers into his orbit. Danny and Donna were slightly surprised, awakening as Lucas's voice rang out, clear and open, echoing through the green walls. The stark fluorescent lights of the studio cast long shadows as Lucas stood poised on the imaginary sandstone slab. He wasn't a performer reciting lines, he was Aaron Ralston breathing life into the cramped audition room. His voice, when he welcomed, wasn't a projected boom but a husky murmur carrying the grit of the unseen canyon trails. His smile wasn't plastered but a genuine flicker, breaking through the stoic mask of the solo adventurer. His hands, emerging from his pockets, weren't theatrical flourishes but tentative explorers seeking connection. Leaning against the air, not with a dramatic slouch but with the natural ease of someone belonging to the wilderness, even its fabricated echo. His gaze, upon meeting the imagined eyes of the unseen women, wasn't a rehearsed stare but a flicker of genuine curiosity, yearning not for applause but for shared adventure. His question, just passing through, wasn't a staged cue but a whispered invitation to join the story etched on his face, carved by unseen winds. There was no manufactured charm, no overplayed swagger. Lucas captured the essence of Aaron in the smallest details, the subtle tilt of his head, the shift in weight that mimicked the sway of unseen rock, the way his voice softened with the imagined setting sun. He wasn't acting, he was living the moment, inhabiting the skin of a man who saw canyons in the blank walls and echoes in the studio hum. Danny and Donna exchanged glances. They appeared serious, but in the depths of their eyes was shock. Were young talents in Hollywood already this good? Such thoughts crossed their minds. Although portraying Aaron Ralston before he was trapped in the narrow canyon wasn't particularly challenging for a professional actor, the person before them didn't seem like a seasoned professional but rather a fledgling, young actor. Danny and Donna, initially inclined to reject Lucas Knight outright, were now considering him. You can return to audition for the other scenes a few times. By the end of this audition, we'll decide on the selected actor for the role, Donna said to Lucas, who had just finished his performance. Danny added, you're welcome to audition throughout this week. I must emphasize that committing to audition daily is necessary, but there's no guarantee that we'll choose you for the role. It's your choice to come back. Thank you. Lucas expressed his gratitude, appreciating the acknowledgement and the opportunity given by the directors. Despite the chance of never being selected and the potential time wasted, Lucas was willing to take the risk. Lucas expressed his gratitude to the directors, clearly thankful, and exited the studio. Observing Lucas's genuine gratitude, Danny and Donna realized the young man wasn't as bad as they initially thought. They had initially perceived Lucas as arrogant and stubborn. "What do you think Mr. Ralston would think if we showed him the audition scenes of that young man?" Danny asked Donna with a smile. "Maybe he'll like the young man. And also, maybe he won't like the performance." "Not sure," Donna replied. "Maybe, hey," Danny muttered, reflecting on Lucas's performance. Chapter 30, Impression. After the audition, Lucas stayed at a budget-friendly motel near the Fox Searchlight headquarters. It only takes a short drive, located on Century Park East, close to Century City Shopping there, Roadway Inn. Lucas settled in the place for now, as he is required to audition for the role of Aaron Ralston for a full week. Around noon, Lucas stepped inside the Fox Searchlight headquarters, and the young, beautiful receptionist already knew Lucas but still recorded his info before letting him in. Lucas walked, and as he approached the hall, he saw that there were already a few actors present. Lucas sat in his seat, pretending to read the scripts. In reality, he didn't need to read them, having practiced extensively in his mind workshop, even simulating the painful experience of his right arm getting stuck in a boulder. Every 3 hours, Lucas entered his mind workshop. Initially, he thought he'd spawn randomly, but to his surprise, his virtual body remained stuck in the narrow canyon, right arm trapped in the boulder. It seemed the workshop saved his progress, restricting him to that location. Around morning, contemplating in his virtual realm, Lucas considered amputating his own right forearm. Equipped with tools, including a camera and a 2-inch knife blade similar to the real Aaron Ralston's multi-use tool, he pondered this drastic decision. Lucas recalled his performance as Aaron Ralston in his mind workshop, trapped in the narrow canyon. In the role of Aaron, Lucas tried to calm himself, understanding that emotions couldn't fully help his situation. However, as he gazed at his stuck right arm, a subconscious declaration slipped out, "You need to cut your arm, Aaron." Aaron, realizing he spoke aloud, immediately shook his head and protested, "No. I can't. I don't want to lose my arm." The scene portrayed Aaron seemingly becoming insane, engaging in a dialogue with himself, "You have to." When Lucas reminisced about it, he couldn't help but smile wryly. Noticing a figure approaching, Lucas turned his gaze toward the person with curiosity. As he identified who it was, a sense of solemnity washed over him. It was his competitor for the role, the one who could pose an incredible challenge, James Franco, the rising star. Noticing Lucas looking at him, James Franco nodded in greeting before taking a seat next to Lucas. James Franco. A rising star in Hollywood, Lucas thought, reciprocating the nod. Widely known for Spider-Man 3, he frequently ventures into indie films, even directing and starring in one himself, Lucas pondered as he discreetly observed James Franco before focusing on his own thoughts. James Franco sensed the occasional gazes from fellow actors in the hall, but he was accustomed to it and didn't mind. After all, being a star, he was used to the attention. Quietly reading the script in his hand, James Franco appeared casual, yet he felt confusion seeing a blonde young man also auditioning for the role. The project sheet specified an age range of 25 to 35, requiring hair and eyes matching Aaron Ralston's character. The young man nearby had blonde hair, blue eyes, and appeared younger, though tall for his age. After discreetly scrutinizing him, James Franco returned to reading the script in silence. Unaware that James Franco was also observing him, Lucas continued reading. As time passed, it was finally Lucas's turn to audition, and he stepped inside the audition room. Lucas spotted director Danny Boyle and Donna, who was scribbling in her notepad. Another man was engrossed in conversation with director Danny. Danny turned to Lucas, saying, "Oh, Mr. Lucas. You came back." Lucas nodded, stating, "I'll not waste the opportunity that the respectable directors have provided me." Danny and Donna chuckled, shaking their heads. Danny remarked, "You're getting ahead of yourself, young man. You act as if we've already picked you." Lucas just smiled. Danny continued, "You better perform well, Mr. Lucas. This guy next to me is the one you need to imitate, Mr. Aaron Ralston," introducing the man with the short, scruffy beard. Lucas took a closer look and only then realized it was the man who survived entrapment by amputating his arm. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Ralston," Lucas greeted respectfully. Aaron nodded and said, I heard that your performance somehow impressed the gentleman and the lady here. I hope I can see the performance myself to see if you can really embody my character. Danny nodded and added, the scene you're about to act is difficult, Mr. Lucas. It's the moment when Mr. Aaron descends the canyon and then has his right arm stuck by the rock. Lucas nodded, and Danny pointed at the setup mimicking the narrow canyon built with weathered plywood. Approaching the narrow canyon setup, Lucas observed the props, with a rock strategically placed between the narrow canyon. Then, Lucas reminisced about the time he descended the realistic narrow canyon in his mind workshop. Lucas prepared himself as the directors and Aaron observed him through the monitor since Lucas was currently being recorded by the studio's camera. They watched as Lucas stood at the precipice of the mimicked narrow canyon. Beneath it lay safety crash bags and airbags in case the actors accidentally fell. Lucas observed the studio lights casting harsh angles on the plywood sculpted to mimic sandstone, yet to him, it was Moab, a sun-baked gateway to adventure. The descent began. Lucas's movements were precise and practiced. His feet found purchase on predetermined footholds, hands skimming the roughened rock face. The canyon walls pressed close, a comforting hug of solitude. Danny, Donna, and Aaron observed Lucas's performance in the role of Aaron Ralston. They could discern from his movements alone that Lucas had some experience exploring canyons, which impressed them slightly. While descending, they truly felt that Lucas embodied the character of Aaron, evident in his expression that conveyed an apparent enjoyment of the descent. Indeed, as Lucas, in the role of Aaron, delved deeper, a sense of exhilaration washed over him. He became Aaron, the explorer, pushing boundaries and testing limits. The echo of his own voice, bouncing off the canyon walls, resembled a triumphant chant. He felt alive, present, with every muscle humming with the thrill of discovery. Observing Lucas's performance, the real Aaron exchanged glances with Danny and remarked, I don't know why, but I can see myself in the young man. Haha, I can see that. He does look pretty handsome, after all, Danny chuckled, and Aaron laughed softly. Then, on the monitor, they witnessed the scene take a different turn. As Lucas, or Aaron, was savoring the descent into the narrow canyon, a shift occurred. A tremor, subtle at first, like the earth taking a breath. The seemingly immovable rock beside his hand groaned. Ignoring it, he continued descending until he heard the rock falling. When he raised his head, he saw the rock about to collide with him. Danny and the others saw the rock or props about to hit Lucas's head. They thought they'd need to repeat the audition and offer suggestions, but it turned out unnecessary. In the role of Aaron, Lucas raised his hands to shield his head from the rock, yet it smashed into his left hand. His eyes glinted, recreating a moment he had experienced in the mind workshop. Although not as real as his mind workshop, Lucas effectively portrayed the role. As the rock appeared to crush his left hand, Lucas registered the danger and promptly yanked his left hand back. However, as the rock ricocheted, it struck his right hand before hitting his whole right forearm. While Danny, Donna, Aaron, and a few staff watched Lucas's performance on the monitor, they couldn't help but be impressed by how convincingly he portrayed the experience of facing a heavy rock. While the real Aaron watched Lucas on the monitor, he couldn't help but recall the memory when the rock seemed to play out exactly as Lucas's performance. His heartbeat quickened momentarily, remembering such a horrible event. However, he also noticed that Lucas was able to replicate the memory, including the moment when the rock fell on his head, and attempting to block it with his hands, which seemed somewhat ridiculous. Aaron chose to set it aside as a coincidence. Following that, they observed Lucas, with his arm pinned by the rock, displaying an expression of disbelief on his face. It seemed like he couldn't believe what had happened. He pressed on, a knot of unease tightening in his gut. Fuck. Lucas grimaced and growled while looking at his pinned right arm. Observing Lucas's performance, Danny stroked his chin. He sensed some polishing in his acting, but overall, he felt incredibly impressed. After all, it was Lucas's first performance and hadn't been rehearsed yet. He even experienced a bit of goosebumps, feeling like he discovered a diamond in the rough that just needed polishing. It seems the young man has his own interpretation of the character. What do you think, Mr. Ralston? Danny asked Aaron Ralston beside him. I really like how he conveys my character in this performance, Aaron Ralston said with a faint smile. Danny and Donna nodded. Donna wasn't surprised that the real Aaron was easily impressed, considering his lack of experience in the filming industry. Donna scribbled her evaluation of Lucas's performance. Similarly, like Danny, she felt that Lucas could display more than his current performance, but overall, she was impressed too. Chapter 31, Chosen. Lucas has auditioned for the film project 127 hours every day, and, quite so far, Lucas could feel that the directors were showing signs that he could be picked for the role. Although it was just Lucas' feeling, he just felt it was a good sign for him. And in the week of Lucas attending auditions, he was informed by the directors to analyze each performance, discuss strengths and weaknesses, and might select potential callbacks for further exploration. It is expected that Lucas and the other potential actors, such as James Franco, to be called back, and other shortlisted actors might be called back for additional scenes, improvisation exercises, or chemistry reads with other cast members. This final stage solidifies the casting team's choice. Although the film 127 hours focused on the main character, Aaron Ralston, there were still some scenes that required other casts. Lucas chose to stay in Los Angeles, Century City. After all, it will just take about a week before he will be called for the audition with other casts. Lucas spent another week in LA, and sure enough, after a week, he was called back to the Fox Searchlight headquarters for additional scenes. Lucas went to the Fox Searchlight headquarters, and went to the studio. As soon as he entered, he noticed James Franco. Lucas knew that James Franco was also called to do additional scenes. James Franco just found out that besides him, there are actually other actors who passed the previous audition stage, the same as him. He turned his head towards the young man with blonde hair and blue eyes. He found it hard to believe that a young actor was actually able to compete against him for the role of Aaron Ralston. James shook off the distractions from his head as he was the one who would audition first and perform the additional scenes along with the other casts, specifically the characters of Christy and Megan. James Franco warmed up before performing the scenes. Lucas sat in the prepared chair for him as he observed the audition progress. It was James Franco who would audition first, and he looked at James sitting in the distance, reading the scripts. While Lucas also read his scripts, he didn't notice that he was being observed through the camera along with James Franco. The directors and the casting team observed the two actors competing for the role of Aaron Ralston. Director Danny was especially impressed by Lucas. A week ago, he tested Lucas with a cold reading. A cold reading means that the actor performs a scene in an audition for the first time without warm-up or rehearsal. It is particularly challenging for actors, especially beginners, as the scene is not included in the scripts provided in the project sheet by the studio. Yet, Lucas's performance was exceptionally well, showcasing his raw talent, improvisation skills, and ability to connect with the material on the fly. James Franco also underwent a cold reading test, yet his performance wasn't as exceptional as Lucas Knight's. To be completely honest, director Danny, casting director Donna, and the casting team felt that there was no need for this additional scenes process and were inclined to choose Lucas Knight for the role of Aaron Ralston on the spot. Even the real Aaron Ralston agreed with this view and liked Lucas Knight. However, the problem was that the studio, producers, and even executive members didn't share the same perspective. While directors hold significant weight, casting decisions often involve collaboration with studios, producers, and executive members. Each party has different priorities and preferences that influence the final selection. The producers and executive members believed that James Franco was suitable for the role. Despite the director's differing opinion, the producers and executive members thought choosing James Franco would at least generate attention for the film, given his potential audience appeal. His name recognition and fan base were viewed as advantageous for the film's commercial success. Casting a rising star can bring both name recognition and potential box office appeal. Studios are often hesitant to relinquish this advantage entirely, especially if the rising star's performance was still good, even if overshadowed by the newcomer. Hence, the directors couldn't proceed with immediate casting. The producers and executive members insisted that James Franco be given a chance. The directors believed that the situation wasn't dire because, along the way, they could make it more evident to the producers and executive members who performed better by comparison in this final stage of the audition. With a significant difference in performance, the producers and executive members would have no choice but to select Lucas Knight for the role. Additionally, the directors wanted to observe how Lucas Knight would handle the pressure, witnessing that he was up against tough competition. After half an hour, James Franco finally performed the scene with the other cast members. The clock ticked, and James Franco's performance finally came to an end. Lucas was able to observe the performance personally, and he had to admit that James Franco was indeed a talented actor. After an hour and a half, it was finally Lucas's turn to perform. James Franco stayed in the audition room and observed Lucas's performance by himself. As he watched, he was quite impressed by Lucas's performance, but he still felt confident that he would get the role. After all, he had just given his best in the scene where his right arm was pinned earlier. He left the audition room after watching Lucas's first scene performance. However, James didn't know that Lucas's performance of the scene where Aaron gets stuck in the canyon surpassed his own in the same scene. After Lucas performed all the required scenes, he went to the motel. Although Lucas knew the chances of him being chosen for the role were high, he still felt nervous. 3 days passed with Lucas in Los Angeles, and his money was gradually being used up. Then his iPhone 3G rang. Lucas hastily answered it and was informed by the casting team that he had been chosen for the role. When Lucas heard this, he was overjoyed and jumped on the bed like a kid. James Franco was in a high-end hotel in Los Angeles, Century City. He had just finished relieving himself when he received a phone call informing him that, unfortunately, he was not chosen for the role. What? You mean that blonde kid took the role? James couldn't help but express disbelief as he asked. As you are not part of the film project, I can't disclose any information about the cast. Good day, sir, came the response. James looked at his phone in disbelief when he heard that. He wasn't literally asking, he just blurted it out due to disbelief. You don't have to disclose anything since I already know, being a participant in the project, James wanted to say back, but he realized the phone call had already ended, not even giving him a chance to explain himself. James couldn't help but feel awkward. Then, he couldn't help but be disappointed, he really wanted to perform in the role after all. Then he remembered Lucas, muttering, I'm curious to see the final result of the film and find out why you were chosen for the role instead of me. If 127 hours were to grace a film festival, James had the urge to watch it and see what Lucas was truly capable of, to be able to best him in the audition. The thing is, he hadn't seen Lucas on television or in films, but James just thought that maybe Lucas had already performed in some TV show or films that he wasn't aware of, as it might not have been well known. Chapter 32, Role Preparation. In Los Angeles, Century City, in a Californian cuisine restaurant. The restaurant named Spago, shimmered like a desert mirage under the California sun. Sunlight ricocheted off the glass walls, casting playful diamonds onto the crisp white tablecloths. Inside, a symphony of clinking cutlery and hushed conversations pulsed beneath a vaulted ceiling studded with twinkling lights. Lucas just ate the dessert, and across from him, Danny Boyle, with his unruly shock of hair and twinkle-eyed grin, looked oddly at home. He ate the lobster pasta. I'm not supposed to be the one to handle this contract offer to you, but you can color me impressed. You really performed the scenes exceptionally well in audition. Danny elegantly wiped the corner of his mouth as he brought a paper to Lucas. Lucas took a closer look, and excitement thumped in his heart. This is it. The contract offer. Lucas thought as he held the contract in his hand. Danny observed Lucas's face, noting the young man's obvious excitement from his expression alone. The contract the producers initially wanted to offer you was $50,000. Lucas couldn't help but furrow his brow slightly upon hearing that. While not experienced in Hollywood, he knew the offer was low, even for indie films, especially for a role where he would be the sole focus for an hour or so. Particularly for an indie film like 127 Hours. Danny noticed the frown on Lucas's face, so he explained, but I helped raise the offer to $350,000. That's the best I could do, the studio didn't budge after that. He sighed and continued, the producers lack confidence in you, despite your better performance compared to James Franco. However, your resume is obviously not as strong as his. Chuckles. Lucas felt a bit disheartened at Danny's last remark but managed a small smile. Indeed, his resume paled in comparison to James Franco's. Seeing Lucas's reaction, Danny reassured him, but don't worry. As a CO producer of the film, I have some influence. The contract is still negotiable, and I can assist you in the negotiations with the studio. I suggest asking for better compensation and adjusting some terms. Lucas nodded in understanding. But the decision is yours. Are you satisfied with the contract in your hand, or do you want to negotiate? Danny asked Lucas seriously, who currently held the initial contract offer. Lucas was silent for a moment and then said, I want to counter-offer. Danny smiled upon hearing that and remarked, I knew you were smarter than you look. Lucas grinned wryly at Danny's comment and continued, first, I'd like box office bonuses. Surprised, Danny looked at Lucas and asked, oh? You want to receive a percentage of the film's box office revenue once it surpasses a predetermined threshold. Lucas nodded. The film's threshold amount is $30 million. It's already considered quite high, but do you believe the film can surpass that? Danny asked, looking at Lucas in surprise. Lucas nodded, asserting, I want a 3% share of the box office if it surpasses the threshold. Danny chuckled, remarking, I think the studio might not agree. There's a chance the film may surpass the threshold, but I'll try to convey your request. Lucas smiled and added, I also want an additional 1% box office share if the film surpasses $50 million. Whoa, $50 million. Danny was a bit astonished by Lucas's request. I don't mind the offer of $200,000, as long as the studio agrees to these box office bonuses, Lucas said. Anything else? Danny asked, curious if Lucas had any more requests. He was quite surprised by how Lucas was handling the negotiations, considering he initially thought of Lucas as an inexperienced young man. If I receive major award nominations, I hope there's a bonus, Lucas said with a smile. Danny chuckled and responded, I always thought you had little confidence in yourself, but it seems I'm wrong. He paused and added, if the negotiations are finalized, Lucas, you need to be prepared. Your role is quite challenging, and you'll undergo physical training, rock climbing, and mental preparation. Read Mr. Ralston's book, it may improve your acting for the role. This might take months, but it depends on whether you think you can handle the role. Lucas nodded and replied, I understand. Deep inside, he worried about the money he'll spend. Don't worry, you won't spend a penny on role preparation. The film's budget covers your role preparation, Danny assured when he saw Lucas's expression. Lucas sighed in relief, eliciting laughter from Danny. Anyway, if you want to better understand your role, consider isolating yourself for a few days. This way, you'll know how Aaron feels being alone, Danny advised Lucas earnestly. Lucas nodded, taking the advice seriously. In the world of acting, performers go to great lengths to enhance their roles, undergoing months of preparation that can have both physical and mental impacts. While some may perceive being an actor or actress as a dream job, living solely by their public image, this notion is mostly true for those cast solely for their looks. However, dedicated actors and actresses, whether lesser-known or renowned figures like Leonardo DiCaprio, Cillian Murphy, Joaquin Phoenix, and Daniel Day-Lewis, invest significant time and effort. Survival in the acting world demands dedication beyond mere appearance. Similar to his previous life, Lucas, though a failed actor, was dedicated and worked hard because of his love for acting. Lucas's negotiations with the studio, Fox Searchlight, extended for a few days, resulting in a final decision. He would receive a salary of $180,000. If the film surpassed its threshold, specifically reaching $35 million at the box office, Lucas would get 1.8% of the box office. Additionally, if the box office hit $50 million, Lucas would receive an extra 1% of the box office. The studio's negotiators didn't bother haggling for the additional 1% of the box office that Lucas had requested. They doubted the box office would reach $50 million with an unfamiliar actor like Lucas in the lead role. Anticipating the film's box office to at least hit $30 million, possibly $35 million, the negotiators focused on the initial 3% request from Lucas. They settled at 1.8%, meaning that if the box office reached $35 million, Lucas would receive $90,000 of $5 million. In the best-case scenario, if the film reached $35 million with a 3% share, Lucas could potentially earn $150,000 of $5 million. Regarding the additional 1% for reaching $52 million, if the film miraculously achieved this milestone with an unfamiliar actor like Lucas in the lead, Lucas would receive $420,000. Lucas would also receive compensation and bonuses if nominated for major awards, a gesture accepted by the producers and executive members to encourage him to give his best in the role. Being chosen for the role of Aaron Ralston, Lucas underwent physical training, including rock climbing, to enhance his performance. With the contract finalized, Lucas, along with the team's assistants, traveled to Utah and, after a few weeks of physical training, ventured into Blue John Canyon. Stepping foot in Blue John Canyon, Lucas was surprised to find it exactly as he had envisioned in his mind workshop. Having activated his mind workshop over the past month and a week, including his auditioning period and hotel stay, Lucas utilized his cheat named Mind Workshop even while undergoing the physical training required for the role. As he trained his body, Lucas realized that the duration he could stay in his mind workshop had extended, allowing him to use his cheat more frequently. Consequently, during informal interactions with crew members on set, fittings, or discussions about the film, Lucas's engagements provided glimpses of his approach to the character and his acting choices. Lucas practiced rock climbing in Blue John Canyon itself. During breaks in his physical training, he would delve into Aaron Ralston's book, with specialists available to guide him in exploring the role. Occasionally, opportunities for limited screen tests or mock UPS of scenes arose during his training phase, offering more concrete feedback on his acting and portrayal of Ralston under physical duress. In his free time, Lucas would call Liza or Leonard, both initially happy about his role but saddened when he mentioned that he might not see them for months. On July 23, 2009, Lucas found himself on the phone with Liza, saying, "I probably won't be able to call for a while." "I see. I hope I'm not bothering you," Liza replied. Lucas smiled and reassured her, "It's all right. Your television appearance is just around the corner," Liza suddenly remarked. "It's in September, Liza," Lucas said with a wry smile. After chatting with Liza for a while, Lucas eventually entered a room. This time, he planned to isolate himself for days or even weeks. Despite the support from the production team, Lucas felt a bit conflicted. Although, with his mind workshop, it seemed unnecessary for Lucas to isolate himself, he chose to do so, using the room as a reason for improving his acting. During his time alone in the room, he could better focus on his mind workshop. Apologies for the oversight. I neglected to include the 1.8% of $5 million if the movie reaches $35 million. Additionally, in cases where the movie earns over $50 million, Lucas is entitled to an extra 1% of the box office revenue above the $50 million threshold, in addition to the 1.8% base bonus. For instance, if the movie earns $52 million, the actor would receive 1.8% of $22 million, the amount exceeding the $50 million threshold, which amounts to $420,000, along with any base bonus. Chapter 33, Progress in the Cruise Shocked, Bonus. I apologize for the oversight in the previous chapter. I failed to mention the 1.8% of $5 million if the movie reaches $35 million. Moreover, if the movie's earnings surpass $50 million, Lucas is entitled to an extra 1% of the box office revenue exceeding the $50 million threshold, in addition to the 1.8% base bonus. For example, if the movie earns $52 million, the actor would receive 1.8% of $22 million, the amount exceeding $50 million, totaling $420,000, along with any base bonus. Lucas was gradually getting used to the room. He noticed that there are hidden cameras around the corner but ignored them. The production probably will monitor him through the room. The room was locked, but Lucas had necessary foods inside, along with a bathroom and a small kitchen beside it. Lucas looked at himself in the bathroom mirror, and he could see the changes in his body. The reason for the physical training was for Lucas to be at least similar to the physical build of Aaron Ralston. To be honest, Lucas wasn't sure if isolating himself in a room for a few days could help at all. Despite that uncertainty, he could freely use his mind workshop in this room, and so far, he has experienced improvement. Now, he'll enter the mind workshop once more. Closing his eyes and immersing himself, Lucas entered his mind workshop, and his mental body remained in the narrow canyon, his right arm still pinned by the boulder. Lucas now assumed the character of Aaron. Aaron had already spent 3 days in the narrow canyon. The passage of time for him being stuck in the narrow canyon within his mind workshop was still 2 days, even though in reality a month and a half had passed. This is because, as mentioned earlier, Lucas can only enter the mind workshop several times a day. Yet, the mental body in his mind workshop remained trapped in the narrow canyon, and time within the mind workshop would pause when Lucas was not present. As Lucas entered the mind workshop, time in that mental space resumed. Although he had just entered, it felt as if he had been enduring the hardships of the narrow canyon as Aaron Ralston for a few days. Not to mention, Lucas would momentarily forget his memories outside, although he still retained awareness of his identity. This functionality of the mind workshop helped Lucas immerse himself further in the character of Aaron Ralston. Due to the realistic pain and setting, Lucas embodying Aaron found himself contemplating various thoughts. His mind wandered, his eyes blankly staring at the rock. The depth of his gaze seemed to ask, "Will I ever escape from this place?" The scorching sun had drained the moisture from his lips, transforming his throat into sandpaper. Time, once a galloping stallion, had slowed to a sluggish donkey, with each creaking second feeling like an eternity in the stone tomb. Then, akin to a cartoon coyote pursuing a tantalizing mirage, hallucinations set in. First, a giggle, high-pitched and tinny, danced on the edges of his hearing like a runaway balloon. He blinked, squinting at the canyon wall, anticipating a dust devil or a desert hawk. Instead, a vision unfolded straight from his childhood Saturday mornings. 2 oversized feet in red platform boots emerged from behind a boulder, followed by baggy green pants held up by a comically large belt. Then, the unmistakable head appeared, shaggy brown fur, oversized teeth, and a dopey grin split right down the middle. Scooby-Doo, in all his cartoon glory, had strolled into his dehydrated delirium. Like, Ruby-Doo-Bye-Roo, Aaron. Scooby's voice echoed, muffled by rock and sweat. What's the Scooby-Doo-Bye deal with Bane trapped in a canyon, dude? Parched and delirious, Aaron could only manage a dry croak. Scooby, thankfully unfazed, trotted closer, dragging a comically oversized magnifying glass behind him. Zoinks! Scooby exclaimed, examining Aaron's arm with exaggerated shock. Like, that looks worse than the time Shaggy swallowed that whole box of Scooby snacks. Aaron managed a chuckle, the first spark of laughter in days. The absurdity of it all, a talking cartoon dog in a real-life nightmare, was somehow comforting. Suddenly, a figure draped in a purple sheet materialized beside Scooby. Shaggy Rogers, lanky and perpetually nervous, peered at Aaron with wide, bloodshot eyes. Zoinks, Scoob, Shaggy whispered, his voice a conspiratorial tremor. Like, maybe he found the old man's hidden treasure. Scooby's eyes lit up like light bulbs. Treasure, you say? Like, gold doubloons and ruby necklaces. Guys, Aaron croaked, there's no treasure. Just a boulder and me. But his protests were drowned out by Scooby's enthusiastic sniffing. The dog scampered around the canyon, nose twitching in overdrive, while Shaggy kept a nervous lookout for unseen dangers. While Lucas's consciousness was in the mind workshop, he wore a foolish smile in the real world. The camera captured everything, including Lucas saying out loud, guys. There's no treasure. Just a boulder and me. Those monitoring Lucas sensed something was amiss because they could clearly see him taking a nap while sitting, yet he displayed peculiar behaviors. A specialist exclaimed, "Is Mr. Knight really all right?" Danny and Donna exchanged glances, and Danny reassured, he was just immersing himself in the role. There's nothing strange about it. Initially, Danny wasn't concerned, thinking Lucas was merely immersing himself. However, as time passed, Lucas seemed to be hallucinating with his eyes closed during what appeared to be napping sessions throughout the day. This behavior continued and became more pronounced. Even Danny and Donna were gradually getting confused. They could see that Lucas wasn't simply immersing himself in the character, they genuinely felt that Lucas was truly hallucinating. When Danny and the others observed Lucas with his eyes closed, seemingly napping yet displaying a pained expression, they were shocked not just because of that. While Lucas had his eyes closed, it seemed like he was in a deep sleep, dreaming. His left hand appeared to be holding an imaginary knife, and in the motion of seemingly amputating his right arm, Lucas's pained expression, groans, and even loud shrieks alarmed the production team. Some crew members were worried and asked themselves, is he really just acting? Even if they weren't experienced in the industry, they could feel Lucas's pain in his groans and shrieks, sensing that it wasn't something easily faked. Especially Lucas's expression, coupled with his pained look, his closed eyes were tearing up, and tears continued to flow down like a river. The crew couldn't help but feel a chill. They were even pondering whether Lucas Knight could be the second Daniel Day-Lewis. 7 days later, Lucas finally emerged from the room. The specialist asked him, "How do you feel?" Lucas simply replied, "I'm doing fine." He drank water from the bottle and added, "I think I can portray Aaron Ralston now." Upon hearing that, the specialists discussed the role with Lucas before he met with the casting director, Donna, who oversaw Lucas's mock-up scenes. Director Danny observed the monitor as Lucas, now sporting a weathered face from isolation and likely exhausted from immersing himself in the role, performed. Danny sighed. He had witnessed Lucas's dedication to the role, and the team's choice was justified, yet he also felt compassion for the young actor. Such is the life of an actor. Nevertheless, Danny pledged to give his best in directing the film, ensuring Lucas's efforts were apparent on screen. Initially, Danny had planned for his directing in 127 hours to overshadow the actor, but with Lucas in the lead role, that perspective had shifted. Chapter 34, The Indie Film Commence. It was already August 14, 2009, and Lucas' mock-up scenes were able to satisfy the director and the casting director. The crew felt it won't be long before the filming will begin, as Lucas was about to finish the books regarding engineering and medical knowledge. Lucas was quite confident that he will deliver an exceptional performance. After all, he actually amputated his right arm in his mind workshop or mental world, and his stuck mental body was finally able to get free from being stuck on the narrow canyon. At the same time, Lucas was able to learn a lot of things when he was able to complete his acting in the mind workshop. Although what happened in his mind workshop wasn't real, Lucas felt that life is very precious. And he remembered the people who were actually very precious to him at the same time. Paul, Liza, Leonard, Samantha, and even Sean flashed in Lucas' mind as he was exercising. Before the filming begins, Lucas will still do physical training for a bit, and the crew was also preparing for the film. Utah's desolate, sun-baked landscapes provided the ideal backdrop for recreating Blue John Canyon. The location scouts scoured the state, ensuring the chosen site mirrored the real-life terrain with chilling accuracy. After that, the production team, led by visionary production designer Mark Slay, painstakingly constructed a detailed replica of the boulder and surrounding canyon walls. Every crack, crevice, and shadow aimed to transport viewers directly into Aaron's trapped world. On August 20, 2009, the filming of 127 Hours officially began. The production team will shoot the interior and flashback scenes before heading to Utah, such as Aaron's apartment, working with the climbing group, and filming flashback sequences with his friends. The makeup artist's skills worked wonders as they were able to make Lucas appear older than his age. Lucas' blonde hair was dyed brown, including his brows a few days ago, and his eyes were wearing brown contact lenses. When Lucas saw himself in the mirror, although he could still see his handsome features, he had to admit, the makeup artists were really good. Although it didn't significantly change his appearance, it did make Lucas appear older, as if he was in his 30s. A moment later, the fluorescent lights of Aaron's apartment hummed with a low, industrial drone. The camera crew, a well-oiled machine of whispers and muffled clicks, huddled in the corner, their gaze fixed on the lanky figure in the center of the room. Lucas Knight, in the skin of Aaron Ralston, meticulously folded a worn climbing harness, his movements economical and practiced. The camera crew, a discreet ballet of focus pullers and sound technicians, pirouetted around him, capturing the scene in hushed whispers and the click-clack of equipment. Director Danny Boyle, a hawk with a watchful eye, leaned against the doorway. "All right, sound check," he announced, his voice barely a murmur. A disembodied voice piped through a speaker, responding, "Rolling sound." Lucas, oblivious to the silent orchestra around him, heard Boyle asking, "Ready for a take?" Boyle's voice crackled through the headset. Lucas nodded, a smile playing on his lips. It seemed he was already immersed in the role of Aaron. "Action!" Danny Boyle's voice, sharp and decisive, cut through the air. Lucas's head snapped up, his eyes flickering with a familiar mix of excitement and apprehension. The scene was simple: Aaron, packing for his fateful Utah trip. But in the tight confines of the apartment, surrounded by climbing gear and half-eaten burritos, Lucas needed to capture the simmering tension beneath Aaron's carefree facade. Aaron moved with calculated nonchalance around the cramped apartment set. Each action, however mundane, stuffing socks into a backpack, rolling a frayed sleeping bag, held the simmering energy of a man on the precipice of change. The camera crew hummed with controlled chaos, whispers rustling amidst the soft whirring of machinery. Director Danny Boyle, perched on a director's chair, scribbled notes, his eyes rarely leaving the monitor where Lucas's image flickered, intense. Suddenly, a shrill ring pierced the air, shattering the practiced calm. Lucas flinched, the backpack strap slipping in his grasp. The telephone, propped on a cluttered desk, emitted an insistent buzz. "Cut!" Boyle barked, the crew melting away like shadows. Silence, heavy and charged with anticipation, descended. Lucas, sweat pricking his brow, took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of stale coffee and damp cardboard. He knew the drill. This wasn't the first time, the first take. But somehow, the simple red rotary telephone remained unconquered, its incessant ringing a gnawing reminder of the life Aaron was leaving behind. Lucas shook his head, drank a bottle of water, and then calmed himself. The crew looked at Lucas with confused expressions, but they kept doing their tasks, while Lucas reminded himself that he was embodying the character of Aaron before the tragedy. Quickly preparing himself, Lucas nodded to Danny. Ready? Boyle's voice echoed, softer this time, tinged with empathy. The kid immersed in the character too much. Danny thought. Although an actor immersing himself in the character is good for better performance, actors sometimes get lost in it. Lucas nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. With a nod to the sound technician, Boyle raised a hand. The phone shrilled again, piercing the quiet like a gunshot. Hey, Aaron here. Leave a message. This time, Lucas, or Aaron, didn't flinch. The red rotary phone shrieked like a banshee in heat, its insistent bleating a stark counterpoint to Aaron's methodical packing. Lucas, seasoned in Aaron's skin, didn't bat an eye. The message was an unwelcome echo, a reminder of the life he was about to shred like cheese on a cheap grater. As he was packing, the sound of his sister's voicemail echoed through the telephone. Hey, Aaron. Sonia here, again. I know that you're probably gonna be away this weekend, but listen, just think about what we're gonna play. Please. Instead of flinching, he popped open the fridge. Chips crunched under his teeth, a staccato counterpoint to Sonia's bubbly voicemail bouncing off the peeling wallpaper. His eyes, however, scanned the shelves not for sustenance, but for something missing. Aaron went to the drawer in the kitchen, and the camera captured his fingers brushing against the empty space where his trusty Swiss Army knife usually lay. The camera caught the hand missing the Swiss Army knife, and instead, it closed around the cheap handle of a thrift store multi-tool. "'Cause we have to decide, and we need to practice, okay? Anyway, it will be fun. I promise. And, oh. Please call Mom. Please. 'Cause she worries, which you know already. Okay. Later, bye." Sonia's voicemail continued to play before bidding farewell. After packing what Aaron thought to be necessary things, he closed his bag, and the camera captured him leaving the apartment. With that, the first pre-Utah scene was completed. The scene didn't involve much acting, after all, it was just a person packing his things before heading out on an adventure. Yet, Danny, who watched the repeated scene, felt that Lucas truly captured the carelessness of Aaron Ralston before the tragedy. Lucas's hand searched for the Swiss Army knife in the drawer, ultimately missing it and grabbing the cheap multi-purpose tool instead. After obtaining it, he didn't even check, as the shape of the multi-purpose tool resembled the Swiss Army knife. Lucas didn't seem to doubt that the thing in his hand was the Swiss Army knife. Even Aaron's pride, Lucas was able to capture, it was very apparent in his actions when he was packing his things, as if he could do everything on his own. The team, along with Danny, approved of the scene. After that, the pre-Utah scenes were filmed with or without Lucas before finally heading to the main shoot, Utah. Mark Tildesley completed the realistically looking boulder, and the location scouts found the right location for the main shoot. The real Aaron Ralston also joined the crew for the upcoming filming. Chapter 35, Utah Scenes. The Utah sun beat down on the desolate canyon floor, baking the red rock like terracotta. Sweat beaded on Lucas's brow, stinging his eyes as he wrestled the dusty mountain bike out of the truck. Around him, the production team buzzed with contained chaos, cameras glinted like metallic predators eyeing the scene. Lucas, transformed into Aaron for the cameras, ran a calloused hand across the bike's worn frame. It wasn't a sleek, carbon fiber beast but an honest-to-goodness mountain bike, scarred with the memories of past treks and tumbles. He swung a leg over the seat, the leather creaking in protest, and gripped the handlebars. "Action!" Director Boyle's voice resonated, shattering the sun-baked silence. Lucas pushed off, tires crunching on gravel, and the once static red cliffs transformed into a living, swirling kaleidoscope. Wind whisked through his hair, carrying the dusty scent of sage and the dry musk of the sun-scorched earth. The camera, a mechanical vulture, swooped around him, capturing the grit in his eyes and the feral grin twisting his lips. He wasn't acting anymore, he was Aaron, a nomad with the wind in his hair and the open road as his compass. The bike, no longer a prop, became an extension of himself, each bump and grind forming a shared language, a conversation forged in sweat and adrenaline. The camera crew, nimble as desert lizards, scurried alongside, their lenses capturing the raw beauty of the landscape. Aaron's mountain bike, a chrome stallion tamed for the camera, purred beneath him, its tires whispering against the sun-baked earth. Behind him, the crew hummed like a hive, a constellation of lights and lenses tracking his every turn. The scene, an ode to freedom and adrenaline, promised breathtaking panoramas and a near miss with disaster. Aaron relished the dance handlebars, a steady extension of his will, his body angled against the invisible line between control and chaos. Each bump, each rock, a mini-drama played out in the fleeting language of speed. As he pedaled with freedom, it happened. A loose pebble, a flicker of inattention. The front tire snagged, sending Lucas soaring in an ungraceful parabola. Bike and rider became a tumbling tumbleweed, bouncing with the rhythm of the canyon floor. Silence, then a collective gasp from the crew, a flurry of movement like startled sandpipers. But Lucas, dust-coated and grinning, lay sprawled like a starfish, the bike miraculously still in one piece. He laughed, ha ha ha. That was fun. A rusty peal echoing through the sandstone labyrinth, the sound catching in the crew's throats, transforming their tension into relieved chuckles. Cut! Boomed the director, his voice laced with amusement. All right, Lucas, you gave us a heart attack for breakfast. But the shot was perfect, beyond my expectations. Danny didn't expect that Lucas would faithfully capture Aaron's essence just by biking across the canyon floor. Thank you, Lucas nodded gratefully. The crew assisted him. A woman was about to offer him a cold water bottle, but Lucas declined, saying, let's save it for later, for the scene. The crew was quite impressed by Lucas, the new actor's dedication. After that, Lucas and Danny discussed the next scene, and Lucas offered some suggestions for his view of the character of Aaron. With the real Aaron himself watching the production, he also listened to Lucas's view of himself when he was young. I feel that we should add humor or sarcasm to Aaron's character, Lucas said, glancing at Danny and Aaron himself in the tent. Danny stroked his chin and asked Aaron just beside him, what do you think, Mr. Ralston? I don't think there's any problem with that, Aaron said with a nod. He continued, to be honest, during the time I was stuck with the boulder, humor and dark sarcasm helped me cope with my ordeal. Lucas also offered his perspective on the role, noting that the film heavily relies on voiceover narration to depict Ralston's thoughts and motivations. He felt he could express these through subtle acting choices, facial expressions, and physicality, instead of relying solely on voiceover. This approach could draw the audience deeper into Ralston's internal world without breaking the film's flow. The director and the real Aaron exchanged glances, curious to see if Lucas could truly satisfy their expectations with his acting. With that, the filming team resumed shooting, capturing the scene where Lucas walked across the canyon. They also filmed the scene Lucas had requested. It was the scene of passing bikers across Lucas, whipping the sand into a frenzy, transforming the air into a gritty blizzard. Grain stung Lucas' face, finding purchase in every nook and cranny. Nostrils flared, teeth gritted, eyes squeezed shut against the abrasive assault. The crew, concerned, rushed to assist Lucas almost immediately after the film was cut. Following that scene, filming continued, leading up to the moment when Aaron encounters two travelers. These two actresses were Kate Mara and Amber Tamblyn. Upon seeing Lucas Knight, the actor playing the protagonist, the actresses were a bit surprised by his youthful appearance. Simultaneously, they couldn't help but recall the time they performed a scene for an audition with Lucas. Back then, they didn't think much of him because they were almost certain that the actor chosen for the role would be James Franco. James wasn't chosen for the role. Kate whispered to Amber in shock. Seems like it, Amber nodded. I don't know why the production would choose an inexperienced actor for the role. Wouldn't it be a waste of money if he doesn't act that well? Well, it's not our turn to judge him. It's the production and the studio's choice, Kate said, shaking her head. Before the scene, Lucas chose to meet with the two actresses. Nice to meet you again, Lucas greeted the two with a smile. Hello, Amber nodded in response. Nice to meet you, Kate also greeted Lucas. Lucas discussed the scene with the two actresses, and simultaneously, they didn't choose to hide their surprise at him being chosen for the role. Lucas could feel the doubts in the two women's eyes, but he just smiled and said, let's do our best in the next scene. Hearing that, the two actresses nodded. Having considerable acting experience, they believed they wouldn't be outperformed by Lucas. Although he did well in the audition with them, the two actresses didn't give their best since the audition wasn't for them but for Lucas and James. They thought Lucas's performance could only reach a certain level. Therefore, they were confident they wouldn't be overshadowed by Lucas, especially given his youth and seemingly limited experience. Chapter 36, Surrendering. The sun-baked canyon floor stretched before Lucas, a canvas under the watchful gaze of boom mics and distant cameras. Director Danny Boyle, sweat beading on his brow, knot on his lip, his eyes glued to the monitor. This was it. Aaron's first encounter with Christy and Megan. The camera crew huddled beneath sun-bleached tents, their whispers muffled by the desert heat. A cameraman, his lens trained on the dune's crest, held his breath. Lucas, now fully Aaron, emerged, a solitary figure against the parched earth. Before approaching, Lucas paused, his gaze seemingly catching the two figures out of sight. He descended the dune into the shallow wash, a practiced move born of weeks of trekking, but it seems like he was experienced for years with his acting. Rounding the corner, he spotted the hikers, Kate Mara as Christy and Amber Tamblyn as Megan, their forms shimmering in the distance like desert mirages. His surprise, subtle yet evident in the slight widening of his eyes, echoed in Danny's muttered, "There it is." Alone for 3 hours, with silence as his companion, Aaron's eyes revealed a flicker of anticipation when the sudden presence of others interrupted his solitude. He paused, slipping off his headphones slightly, the gesture captured by a nearby camera. Then, with a burst of energy, he set off after the women. Moving swiftly, their pace echoed youthful exuberance. Lucas pushed himself, but progress was slow, the camera lens tracking his strides. A solitary hiker in a vast landscape, he was accustomed to the rhythm of his own steps. However, in this unexpected company, a new rhythm emerged, one of pursuit and connection. He had prepared for solitude and the stark beauty of the canyon walls, not for this unexpected encounter. Yet, as he rounded a bend and caught their eye, a genuine and warm smile softened Aaron's features. He called out with a gruff howdy that echoed through the canyon, the sound discreetly picked up by a boom mic held by a sound technician. The women, startled, exchanged a glance. Megan, with her brunette hair catching the sunlight, offered a friendly "Hey there." Christy, her gaze reserved but curious, simply nodded. Not one for awkward silences, Aaron pressed on, his voice slightly hesitant at first, gaining confidence as he spoke. "Didn't expect to see anyone out here today," he admitted, the camera zooming in on his face, capturing the flicker of surprise in his eyes. Megan chuckled, a sound that rang out in the stillness. "Yeah, you surprised us, sneaking up like that." Change of perspective. The canyon floor stretched beneath the desert sun, a bleached canvas waiting for its colors. Kate Mara, portraying Christy, and Amber Tamblyn, portraying Megan, trudged along, their shoulders hunched against the desert heat, their conversation punctuated by the crunch of boots on rock. Both seasoned actresses, they took their roles seriously, but a sliver of doubt gnawed at them. They couldn't imagine a young actor like Lucas, playing Aaron, outshining James Franco in the audition tapes. The scene unfolded. Lucas, now transformed into Aaron, crested a dune, a solitary figure against the vastness. His howdy echoed, rough and genuine. Kate's eyes narrowed, dissecting his delivery, while Amber's smile remained guarded, a flicker of surprise betraying her. Aaron, appearing to hope for a more engaging response, subtly gestured and said, "I wasn't expecting to see anyone in the canyon today." Kate and Amber sensed the surprise in Lucas's voice. They observed as he subtly looked around, clearly indicating with his gestures that he hadn't expected anyone to be in the remote canyon. Amber, not wanting to disrupt the scene, said with a smile, "Yeah, you surprised us, sneaking up like that." Then, they heard Aaron explain, "Oh, sorry, I was listening to my headphones, kind of wrapped up in my thoughts." He smiled naturally and extended an introduction, "My name's Aaron." Lucas, embodying Aaron, wove a tapestry of words, his voice morphing from hesitant surprise to easy camaraderie. He shared anecdotes seasoned with self-deprecating humor, drawing chuckles from Amber and a faint thawing from Kate. However, a subtle tension hung in the air, unnoticed by the camera crew. Kate and Amber, seasoned actresses, felt their polished personas slipping. The raw, unpolished realism of Lucas' performance was like a mirror, reflecting their own carefully constructed facades. They noticed his sun-baked skin, the wrinkles etched around his eyes, and the way his gaze darted across the canyon, searching for something beyond them. It was Aaron, not Lucas, standing before them, and the dissonance gnawed at their confidence. When Lucas, portraying Aaron, stumbled on a rock, his yelp so genuine it startled them, a crack appeared in Kate's carefully constructed composure. Her hand twitched, almost reaching out in concern, a reflex she'd never allow Christy. Amber's laughter, genuine and unguarded, was a stark contrast to Megan's playful banter. "Cut." Director Boyle's voice cut through the scene. He looked at Kate and Amber, his gaze heavy with unspoken disappointment. Lucas, sweat-streaked and exhilarated, remained in character, oblivious to the turmoil brewing around him. Kate and Amber felt their faces burn. They had come prepared to steal the scene, to outshine the newcomer. Instead, they found themselves exposed, their polished acting skills failing to match the raw authenticity Lucas brought to Aaron. Kate and Amber acknowledged their mistakes and apologized to director Boyle, who was offering his perspective on their performance. "All right now. You two felt quite off there," Danny said, gazing seriously at the two women. He continued, "Lucas's performance was exceptional, but you two are undermining it with your acting. Isn't it embarrassing for experienced actresses like you to deliver such a performance to a brilliant newcomer?" "I apologize, director," Kate said, and Amber echoed the sentiment. "Your role is simple. A young woman who meets Aaron along the way and then accompanies him for a while before bidding farewell." Director Boyle's reprimand echoed and was audible to the crew. The crew understood the director's frustration. They could see Lucas's dedication to the role, and witnessing two individuals included in the film not committing themselves, despite having only a few scenes, felt disappointing. Especially since these two people were experienced actresses compared to the new actor Lucas, who displayed remarkable dedication. The filming began once more, with Lucas delivering an exceptional performance as Aaron. However, the actresses' performances felt off in comparison, resulting in several takes before director Boyle and Lucas deemed the scene satisfactory. Kate, swallowing her pride, allowed Christie's vulnerability to peek through. Amber, humbled, discovered Megan's genuine curiosity in Lucas' portrayal of Aaron. The scene, initially a competition in the eyes of the two actresses, transformed into a collaboration, a testament to the transformative power of storytelling and the humbling reality of facing an actor whose dedication transcended expectations. In the heart of the canyon, under the scorching sun, two seasoned actresses shed their masks and discovered an unexpected truth: sometimes, the greatest performance comes not from stealing the spotlight but from surrendering to the story and letting the character shine through. Chapter 37, Key Filming Sequence. Fish's fluff head pulsed through Lucas's headphones, a rhythmic counterpoint to the flurry of activity around him. The underwater scene loomed, a baptism of sorts in the azure heart of Homestead Crater. This volcanic womb, nestled within the Wasatch Canyon, held a different kind of magic for today's shoot. Amidst the controlled chaos, Lucas was a study in stillness. His Aaron exuded a quiet intensity, honed years before on rock faces like these. In Christy and Megan, played with ethereal elegance by Kate Mara and Amber Tamblyn, one witnessed surrender. They knew the spotlight belonged to Lucas today, his artistry a geyser waiting to erupt. The cameras rolled. Lucas and Kate scaled the crater's sheer wall, their fingers gripping the sun-warmed rock with the intimacy of long-lost lovers. Amber, tethered at the base, watched with amusement as Lucas, seemingly possessed by Aaron's reckless spirit, playfully feigned a stumble. His descent resembled a swan dive, both graceful and deliberate, the water welcoming him with a liquid embrace. "Aaron!" Christy and Megan screeched, their hearts pounding, desperately searching for any sign of movement in the turquoise water. It wasn't until his voice, muffled but buoyant, bubbled up from the depths that their breaths whooshed out in a wave of relief. Aaron resurfaced, his hair plastered to his forehead, grinning like a sun-dappled child. "Just testing my wings," he called up, his voice muffled by the water. Christy and Megan, perched precariously on their ledge, let out a collective sigh, their initial panic giving way to relieved laughter. "Don't scare us like that, Aaron," Megan chided, her voice echoing off the crater walls. Then, the underwater ballet began. Laughter rose like bubbles, sunlight danced on ripples, and words spun like water lilies on the surface. As the director's cut echoed, Lucas, Kate, and Amber rose from the cool pool, towels wrapped around them, courtesy of attentive staff. Kate, shivering, muttered under her breath, "Brrr, that water is chilly." Amber nods in agreement, freezing. Kate and Amber steal glances at Lucas, already engrossed in discussion with the director and crew. They catch snippets about the just-filmed scene and exchange knowing looks. Lucas's dedication is palpable. After all, this film revolves around him. Ralston's Canyon ordeal demands near-exclusive focus on the lead. Kate and Amber understand. Danny, the assistant director, approaches Lucas. After the next scene is filmed, next up, the canyon sequence. "I know you'll ace it, but stay prepped, okay?" Lucas, his eyes steely, nods. "Always." Dawn bleeds into morning as Lucas wraps up scenes with Kate and Amber. Noon looms, the hour destiny has chosen for Aaron's descent into the Blue John Canyon. Preparation buzzes around him. Lucas, having immersed himself in the depths of Aaron's real-life experiences, stood poised, a conduit ready to channel the adventurer's spirit. Action! Snapped the director. Lucas, transcending his own identity, transformed into Aaron. The camera devoured his every step, capturing the thrill of exploration etched on his face. He delved deeper, a lone figure swallowed by the canyon's immensity. The production team, an orchestra in perfect harmony, documented the scene in seamless cuts. Then, the chasm narrowed. Aaron, dwarfed by the towering walls, reached for a handhold, a seemingly innocuous rock. It shifted. Gravity roared. Lucas, embodying Aaron, reacted with lightning speed. He tried to push off, but the rock slammed into his left hand, pain exploding. Snatching his hand back, the ricocheting stone found its mark again, pulverizing his right hand before cruelly wrapping around his forearm, pinning him like a fly in amber. Lucas, embodying Aaron, remained frozen. Not a statue, not a corpse, but a man whose world had just fractured. The searing pain in his hand was a distant echo compared to the earthquake in his mind. Disbelief, raw and gaping, swallowed him whole. He stared at the mangled forearm, a nightmare grafted onto his flesh. Although the fake rock pinning his right arm was just light, Lucas remembered his time in the mind workshop. It was so real, so uncannily his, that it mocked the reality it mirrored. The camera captured Lucas in the role of Aaron. His fingers, once nimble tools of exploration, were now twisted talons locked in a silent scream. The canyon walls, once his playground, loomed like mocking giants. The sun, once a beacon, felt like a cruel spotlight on his agony. The air, once his lifeline, tasted like ash and despair. The canyon walls, once his playground, now loomed like mocking giants. The sun, once a beacon, felt like a cruel spotlight on his agony. The air, once his lifeline, tasted like ash and despair. Lucas, Aaron, the adventurer, was gone. In his place stood a shell, a hollowed husk of a man, staring into the abyss. His breath came in ragged gasps, each one a desperate plea for a reality that had slipped through his fingers like sand. The camera, a silent voyeur, captured it all: the tremor of his jaw, the flicker of panic in his eyes, the slow descent of his spirit into the pit of his stomach. No theatrics, no grand gestures, just the raw, unfiltered truth of a man confronting the cruel hand of fate. The crew, their faces etched with concern, held their breath. This wasn't acting, it was a soul laid bare, a mirror reflecting the fragility of existence. And in that moment, Lucas wasn't just Aaron Ralston, trapped in a canyon. He embodied every human being, facing their own personal precipice, their own brush with mortality. The scene dissolved, cameras clicking off. The production team swarmed, replacing the rock with a chillingly real prosthetic forearm. Lucas, once Aaron, slipped back into his own skin for a moment, the weight of the scene clinging to him like desert dust. But as the director's action cracked through the silence, Lucas vanished again, seamlessly becoming Aaron once more. Aaron understood that wallowing wouldn't secure victory in this fight. He was a man of action, not despair. With a deep breath, he forced his emotions down, a familiar stoicism settling over him. He reached for his bag, extracting a handheld camera and setting it atop a nearby rock. Its lens, like a watchful eye, would document his ordeal. Unscrewing his water bottle, a small sip offered meager comfort. His gaze fell to the mangled limb, a mockery of his once nimble hand. Fumbling for his multi-tool, a pang of disappointment washed over him. It wasn't his trusty Swiss Army knife, but a cheap substitute, a cruel twist in this already dire situation. A grim chuckle escaped his lips, followed by a shake of his head. Then, with newfound resolve, Aaron set to work, scraping at the rock face before him. Each scrape was a defiance against fate, a testament to the unyielding spirit trapped within this narrow prison. Chapter 38, The pilot was aired. Day 1 in the Blue John's clutches. Despite being lauded for his exceptional acting, Lucas remained humble. Even a single off-kilter moment was enough to send him willingly diving back into the scene, eager to perfect it. Danny, the director, witnessed this dedication firsthand, impressed by the young actor's raw talent and relentless pursuit of excellence. He'd seen his fair share of stars, but Lucas shone differently. A supernova of talent was still adjusting to the spotlight's glare. "You're a natural, Lucas," Danny said, watching the young actor emerge from the shadows. "But don't push yourself too hard. We've got 5, maybe 7 days for this sequence, at most. Lucas, still catching his breath, offered a tired smile. 5 days? The crew thinks we can do it faster. The Kenyan shoot, initially estimated to take 5 to 7 days, already shimmered with the possibility of completion sooner thanks to Lucas's precision and unwavering focus. The crew, their initial awe tempered by respect, buzzed with shared anticipation for the film's birth. September 23, 2009. As Lucas neared the finish line of his first film, a different kind of magic filled the airwaves. In living rooms across the nation, the pilot episode of Modern Family flickered to life. In a rural corner of Kansas, Sarah, a teacher with a penchant for sitcoms, sat mesmerized. The quirky Pritchett Dunphy clan charmed her, but her attention snagged on Dylan, the brooding teen with a mischievous glint in his eyes. He was played by none other than Lucas. The Dylan on screen, portrayed by Lucas, was captivating, a cool breeze ruffled with nervous awkwardness, reminiscent of Roderick Heffley, toned down by a dash of sunshine. This Dylan was cool, sure, but beneath the laid-back veneer lurked a hint of endearing goofiness. Sarah's jaw dropped at a certain scene, the one where Dylan hoisted Phil onto his shoulder like a reluctant teddy bear. "Oh Phil, honey, not your best angle," she cackled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Though I gotta admit, you're rocking that pink tutu." After the TV show Modern Family concluded, Sarah sighed, yearning for the show to continue, longing for more laughter. Despite feeling disappointed by the brief episode, she anticipated more episodes. "I hope the show continues," she sighed. The next day, Sarah woke up to a different kind of sunrise. She turned on her computer and browsed the Yahoo website. A day had passed since the Modern Family pilot, and in the Yahoo community, Modern Family trended as one of the TV shows gaining attention on the site. Internet users discussed the Modern Family pilot and its funny scenes. Despite the show not having much of a soundtrack, that only added to its charm and humor. Threads sprang up faster than popcorn kernels. "OMG, the Dunphys are hilarious, can we all agree Gloria is a queen, but who is that Dylan guy?" One thread caught Sarah's eye. "Who's the hot new guy playing Dylan?" it blared, followed by a flurry of responses. She scrolled through the comments, a smile curving her lips. The Dylan question quickly became trending. Users swooned over his blonde hair and captivating blue eyes. Someone dubbed him the perfect mix of cool and goofball, and Sarah couldn't help but nod in agreement. Cool with a side of endearing clumsiness. Laughter-laced comments dissected his every line, speculating, is he just playing himself? Because I'd be his Haley any day. In the thread, there were already dozens of posts, with subject lines such as new sitcom alert. Modern Family is hilarious, and Dylan is my new crush. One post read, just watched the Modern Family pilot and I'm obsessed. Dylan cracks me up. Gotta love that laid-back charm with a dash of goofiness. Who plays him? I need to know. And there were already dozens of replies in the post. OMG, Dylan's eyes are like the bluest ocean. And his hair is like sunshine. He's totally dreamy, but also kind of awkward at the same time. I can't wait to see more of him. User 2, seriously, the blonde hair, the blue eyes, the charm, I'm officially head over heels. Any idea who plays him? As Sarah scrolled through the Yahoo site, she noticed several posts dedicated to the character of Dylan. She scoffed when she read something like, Dylan was definitely a ladies' man for sure. Dylan, the ladies' man? Sarah snorted, clutching her stomach. More like the walking disaster zone. She laughed, her heart swelling with warmth. Wait, does he even have a Wikipedia page? Sarah commented on a particular post, sparking a mini investigation. The lack of an online footprint only fueled intrigue among internet users trying to find information about the actor who played Dylan. A mystery hottie in a hilarious sitcom? Sign me up! Declared another user, summarizing the collective sentiment. Blonde hair, blue eyes, can definitely rock a Princess Carrie, another user wrote, followed by a string of heart emojis. Sarah chuckled, feeling a strange pride bubble in her chest. She knew this blonde, blue-eyed actor not from Fame magazines or red carpets, but from popcorn-fueled Wednesday nights spent laughing along with his awkward charm. Dash. Lucas was unaware of the ripples his sitcom debut was sending across the internet. In the Kenyan's suffocating embrace, he embodied Aaron Ralston, a man teetering on the precipice of sanity. Reality and acting blurred as he stared at his mangled arm, ensnared by the unforgiving rock. You have to cut it, Aaron, he muttered, his voice a dry rasp against the silence. The word struck him like a blow. No, cutting was surrender, anathema to Aaron's spirit. He shook his head, a wild denial. No. I don't want to cut my arm. But you have to. He countered, his own voice an accusatory echo. The multi-tool felt flimsy in his grasp, a pale imitation of the sturdy knife he hadn't brought. It danced mockingly against his skin, refusing to bite into the flesh, let alone bone. Frustration boiled over. Sweat ran in rivulets down his face, each beat a silent scream. He gripped the tool so tight his knuckles turned white, a silent war raging within him. Then, a strangled sob escaped his lips, the canyon mirroring his despair with its echoing emptiness. The scene didn't end with a director's shout but with a whimper of defeat. The ensuing silence was heavy, the crew holding their breath as the canyon held its own. In that quiet, Lucas emerged from Aaron's skin, shaken but resolute. He knew this was just one battle, one excruciating step in the dance with survival. Chapter 39, Contract Renewal. The lights dimmed, a final note from the soundtrack echoing through the empty set. Lucas slumped into his chair, the day's exhaustion settling in his bones. His mind replayed the final scene, Aaron's desperate plea for survival, a raw echo in his memory. Suddenly, his phone buzzed, snapping him back to reality. It was Liza, her voice crackling with excitement. I just saw the pilot. You were. Her words tumbled over each other, overflowing with a fan's adoration. Lucas chuckled, basking in her enthusiasm. He spent a comfortable while on the phone, savoring the validation of his work. They chatted for what felt like hours, laughing and reminiscing, before the call ended. Then, just as the silence threatened to settle again, the phone jolted him back to reality. It was Paul, his voice warm with genuine praise. Loved your performance in Dylan, Lucas, Paul boomed. Couldn't have picked a better fit. Lucas's smile stretched wide, the weary lines around his eyes crinkling with genuine warmth. He mumbled thanks, the gratitude thick in his throat. He knew, with a heart full of quiet conviction, that without Paul's initial leap of faith in giving him the opportunity to play the role of Dylan, none of this would be happening. No Christopher Lloyd's glowing recommendation letter, no connection to innovative artists, and certainly not this grueling yet exhilarating portrayal of Aaron Ralston in 127 hours. Paul had been the first domino, setting off a chain reaction that brought him here, to this raw, sun-baked canyon, where he was wrestling with survival and breathing life into a desperate soul. The current scene was a whirlwind of hallucinations, Scooby-Doo, neon-lit parties, and the bittersweet ghost of a past relationship. The handheld camera, his only companion in the suffocating silence of the canyon, flickered to life. Aaron's face, etched with exhaustion and desperation, swam into view. He was a man teetering on the precipice of sanity, his gaze vacant as he contemplated his predicament. Then came the scene that would become etched in everyone's memory. Aaron, stripped to his bare humanity, clinging to his survival instincts. Aaron's gaunt face filled the screen, sweat clinging to his stubble. A rasping cough escaped his lips. His gaze flickered to the camelback, a lifeline transformed into a grotesque chalice. The camera caught the hesitation etched on his face, the tremor in his fingers. He clutched his empty camelback reservoir, a grim realization dawning on his face. Aaron hesitated completely, his eyes reflecting the agony of the choice before him. A groan escaped him, raw and primal. He reached down, the calloused pad of his thumb trembling against his swollen bladder. This was it. Aaron, a man teetering on the edge of oblivion. Hesitation flickered across his face, a war raging within him. The camera, cold and unblinking, captured the grimace that twisted his lips as he uncrossed his legs, aiming his body like a broken compass towards the cracked plastic of his camelback reservoir. It was a scene that defied the boundaries of acting, a raw portrayal of human vulnerability that made the crew squirm and yet, glued to the screen. The act itself was a brutal ballet, desperation choreographing every flinch and shudder. The screen reeled with Aaron's struggle, the stench as palpable as the tears welling in his eyes. This was no performance, it was raw survival clawing its way into existence. The stench hit Aaron first, a wave of nausea rising in his throat. Gagging, but driven by the will to survive, he held back. Taking a hesitant sip, the acrid taste flooded his senses. His face contorted in disgust, a silent scream mirroring the canyon's echoing emptiness. As Aaron raised the reservoir to his lips, the crew held their breath. The stench seemed to permeate the air, even from behind the monitor. Lucas's face contorted in a battle of survival against revulsion. Gagging, he forced it down, his eyes squeezed shut against the horror. The crew watched, transfixed by the macabre spectacle. Their stomachs churned, a primal revulsion at the sight, yet their eyes remained glued to the screen. Lucas, as Aaron, had blurred the lines between reality and performance. His desperation, his disgust, it was all too real. Even Danny, the seasoned director, couldn't tear his gaze away, a morbid fascination battling the bile rising in his throat. Dash. The Kenyan silence hung heavy as the end scene flickered on the monitor. Lucas, still hunched like a forgotten boulder, exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Around him, the crew stirred, eyes glazed and stomachs churning. Director Danny, ever the stoic, remained rooted to his chair, the praise simmering under his gaze. Lucas, he finally rumbled, his voice thick with grudging respect, that was something else. I've seen actors chew scenery before, but you, boy, you swallowed the damn Kenyan and spat it out raw. A ghost of a smile flitted across Lucas' lips. Just trying to stay true to Aaron, sir. Danny snorted. True? Hell, you lived it. I smelled it, the desperation, the disgust, the sheer survival. I almost reached for a barf bag myself. He shook his head, a grudging admiration softening his features. You know, for a second there, I could have sworn you were actually drinking, you know. And if I didn't know better, if I hadn't seen the props myself, I would have believed it hook, line, and stinking sinker. Lucas chuckled, a low rumble that echoed the Kenyan's emptiness. That's the acting dream, isn't it, sir? To make them forget? To pull them so deep into the story, they lose sight of the artifice. Danny met his gaze, his eyes glinting with newfound respect. It is, son. And today, you achieved it spectacularly. You performed exceptionally well, that you crawled into Aaron's skin, breathed his desperation, tasted his despair. And you made us, every damn one of us, taste it too. Except for that piss, I don't want to imagine the taste of it. Almost everyone laughed at that. Lucas also chuckled softly at the words. Danny paused, then clapped a hand on Lucas' shoulder, a gesture surprisingly gentle from the gruff director. You, kid, you just painted a masterpiece in piss and sweat. Lucas didn't know if Danny was joking or praising him genuinely. He chuckled wryly as the crew laughed once more, dispelling the desperate scene of Aaron that was just filmed a moment ago. The filming continued into the night. Afterward, Lucas rested and chilled in his tent, his body exhausted from acting. As morning came, he received a call from the Modern Family production team, offering him a contract for the entire season. Lucas obviously agreed, but he remained quite busy. The production team, however, was willing to wait. Simultaneously, the agents at Innovative Artists Agency seemed to take notice of Lucas as the pilot of Modern Family became quite successful. Lucas, who guest starred in the pilot, attracted the attention of some small-time agents at Innovative Artists. After learning that Lucas had already entered IA, a few started to contact him. Chapter 40, Final Scene. With 127 hours filming consuming his days, Lucas postponed renewing his ABC contract for now. He welcomed calls from IA agents and even hoped to meet some, but scheduling proved challenging for the next few days. Lucas' cryptic mention of another project left the agents perplexed. Suspecting a potential rival gig, they opted for a strategic delay, hoping to secure Lucas' attention once his hands were free. Meanwhile, the 127 hours set buzzed with anticipation as the final act drew near. One scene stood out above the rest, a scene where Lucas, his body a living testament to Aaron's ordeal, wrestled with his soul split between desperate hope and crushing despair. Every frame pulsed with raw emotion, from the raw exhaustion painted on his face to the silent scream etched in his eyes, mirrored by the relentless sweat trailing down his parched skin. But even in this desolate abyss, a flicker of defiance refused to be extinguished. The thought of his family, their faces a distant mirage shimmering in the unforgiving heat, served as a lifeline, anchored him to a world he clawed to return to. And even the sliver of sunlight that dared to intrude through the Kenyon's gaping maw, painting tantalizing shadows on the rock face, whispered hope in the face of despair. Aaron angled his leg, seeking the elusive sunbeam that trickled down the Kenyon's gaping maw. For a blessed moment, its warmth kissed his sun-starved skin, a fleeting echo of normalcy in this suffocating tomb. But the respite was cruel, leaving him even more acutely aware of his imprisonment. The rock, cold and unyielding, clamped down on his right arm, a silent tormentor. Then, a new sensation prickled his skin, sending a shiver down his spine. On his forearm, beneath the crushing weight of the boulder, a bone rasped against another with a sickening crunch. Hope, long a flickering ember, flared into a searing flame. His arm, trapped for days, might offer the key to his own escape. The lens captured Lucas, his face sculpted by the brutal symphony of pain. Then, a subtle shift. An understanding, grim and cold, chased away the raw misery. Fear? No. 5 days in this sunless pit had blunted its bite. Instead, a twisted joy flickered in his hollow eyes. The camera caught the subtle change, the weary slump straightening, the flicker of resolve battling exhaustion. In this abyss of despair, Aaron had found not just resignation, but a morbid hope. In the agonizing fracture of his bone, he saw not defeat, but a grotesque key, twisted and macabre, that might just unlock the prison that held him captive. Salvation. A macabre word for a desperate act. The fractured bone in his forearm, a gruesome symphony of crunching cartilage, only fueled Aaron's resolve. With each rasping movement, hope twisted in his soul like a thorny vine. His weary face, edged with days of ordeal, broke into a chilling yet jubilant grin. Yes. He rasped, a sound more primal than human. The cheap multi-tool, his only savior in this sun-starved prison, felt almost comforting in his calloused grip. The broken bone, a gruesome gift, meant the blade wouldn't meet resistance. With a steely glint in his eye, Aaron pressed the serrated edge to his flesh, the first act of a horrifying yet liberating dance. His grip tightened, knuckles white with determination, as he pressed the serrated edge against his own skin, the first tremor of pain a morbid promise of freedom. The silence screamed louder than any wound. Blood, expectedly hot and urgent, trickled like ice water down a numbed, alien limb. Aaron's face, a roadmap of sun-baked exhaustion, twisted into a grotesque parody of relief, only to crack under the searing bite of returning pain. The camera, a voyeur in this descent into flesh and bone, lingered on the prosthetic arm, a chillingly perfect echo of Lucas's own. Veins, like macabre vines, snaked beneath skin that mirrored his own sickly pallor. Every pore, every imperfection, rendered with unsettling hyperrealism. The crew, eyes hardened by years on set, flinched away. But Lucas, his gaze unflinching, consumed the scene. Groans, raw and primal, clawed their way through his clenched teeth, a counterpoint to the rhythmic sawing of the blade. In his eyes, a storm of anguish and steely resolve battled for dominance, the terrifying price of freedom etched in blood and bone. HNGH. A sob, strangled in mid-cry, died on Lucas' parched lips. His eyes, like smoldering embers in a sun-scorched landscape, refused to tear away from the severed arm. Each rasping groan, each flinch against the blade, was a battle cry against his own flesh. Director Danny, experience of cinematic brutality, felt a flicker of nausea creep up his throat. The prosthetic carnage, shockingly real, spattered and oozed, painting Lucas' face, his clothes, the very rocks beneath him in crimson horror. It was too much, almost, yet he couldn't look away. Lucas, his gaze unwavering, his body a canvas of agony, absorbed every tremor, every sickening detail. The sawing of the blade, the hiss of fake blood, the symphony of pain, he drank it in, a twisted sacrament in the name of survival. A collective breath escaped the crew as Lucas, his face a mask of steely resolve, severed the last tendon of the prosthetic arm. His dedication to the scene, born from countless discussions with Danny and Aaron Ralston himself, was palpable. Every agonizing rasp of the blade, every flinch of his torso, echoed Ralston's ordeal with brutal authenticity. Lucas spent a grueling 42 minutes in that raw vulnerability, his every tremor captured by the unflinching camera. Even with the inevitable cuts of 42 minutes, the exhaustion etched on Lucas' face, the tremor in his hands, whispered a truth no editing could erase. The metallic tang of fake blood filled Lucas' nostrils, a macabre perfume of his triumph. With a groan that mirrored the groan of the canyon itself, he sank back against the cold stone, the shock of freedom battling the lingering fire of pain. In front, the severed limb, chillingly real in its fabricated gore, lay hostage to the rock, a grim testament to the ordeal he had walked through. His gaze, haunted by the echoes of agony, traced the empty sleeve, a phantom limb still tingling with phantom nerves. The camera clicked off, but the silence lingered, a heavy cloak draped over the canyon. The crew, faces pale and eyes wide, exchanged wordless glances. Lucas, his face drained of color, stared at the empty sleeve where his arm had been, a phantom limb still tingling with phantom pain. The scene was over, but the echoes of his agony would resonate long after the final edit. Was it Oscar-worthy? Only time would tell. Danny, ever the strategist, leaned over the exhausted Lucas. Cut, he called, concern etching his features. We can pick this up tomorrow. You need rest. Lucas, his face a mask of sweat and grit, shook his head. No, director, he rasped, voice raw. One take. The exhaustion, it has to be real. A wave of unease washed over the crew. Was Lucas pushing himself too far? They'd seen actors go method, but this felt different. Director Danny and the crew stood stunned. Lucas' dedication reverberated like a shockwave, leaving them speechless. His final performance, etched in exhaustion and raw triumph, had pierced their hearts. With a nod to Lucas' suggestion, they resumed filming. The camera rolled as Lucas as Aaron, reborn from the canyon's prison, bathed in the sun's embrace. He savored the desert wind, guzzled the precious floodwater, and his laughter soared into the vastness. Sunlight, a forgotten luxury, bathed Aaron's face as he emerged from the narrow canyon, his prison for days. He stumbled, weak but free, his eyes wide with a joy that bordered on delirium. The desert air, harsh yet liberating, filled his lungs. He knelt, cupping his hands in the shallow water that had pooled in the sand, the taste of life on his parched lips. With a shaky hand, Lucas, as Aaron waved towards distant figures, their shouts muffled by the ringing in his ears. He had done it. He was free. The director and crew, initially worried about the authenticity of his acting as he swayed, rushed forward, but it was too late. Lucas, his body drained from the ordeal, crumpled to the sand. But even in his faint, a smile flickered on his lips. He had faced the abyss and emerged, forever changed, forever free. Bottle of water, stat. Danny boomed, his voice cracking with a mix of panic and relief. His gaze darted between Lucas, fainted against the sun-baked sand, and the crew scrambling for supplies. Two medics, faces grim, rushed forward, their movements mirroring the director's urgency. Chapter 41, Complications in Idea. Beneath the searing gaze of the sun-baked canyon, the filming of 127 Hours reached its climax. Exhausted and exhilarated, Lucas crumpled to the ground, collapsing in the final scene. A hush fell over the set as medics rushed to his side, their faces etched with concern. Moments later, a collective sigh of relief rippled through the air. Lucas was all right, shaken but unharmed. With gentle hands, he was lifted and carried towards the shaded haven of the tent. Director Danny Boyle and Aaron Ralston himself, the real-life inspiration for the film, trailed behind, their eyes reflecting a mixture of relief and lingering worry. Danny watched Lucas being carried away, his concern softening into a wry smile. Pushed himself a little too hard there, wouldn't you say, Aaron? Aaron, standing with his wife at his side, nodded in agreement. He certainly did. But his dedication to the role is admirable, to say the least. Danny chuckled, his eyes twinkling. Admirable, or downright reckless. Either way, he gave your story the justice it deserved. Aaron's smile warmed. He did. Watching him, I almost forgot myself for a moment. He captured the desperation, the despair, that gnawed at me in the canyon. I never imagined my experience could be translated so vividly onto screen. And Lucas, well, he might be young, but he captured the essence of it all, from the abyss of despair to the spark of faith that kept me going. He showed me myself, reborn. Danny's smile widened, genuine and warm. Told you so, Aaron, he said, his voice thick with emotion. This story was begging to be on the big screen. Lucas Knight just brought it home, didn't he? Aaron's smile held a hint of disbelief and immense satisfaction. He'd been hesitant at first, wary of laying bare his ordeal for the world to see. But now, watching Lucas breathe life into his harrowing journey, Aaron felt a profound sense of validation. He turned to his wife, his eyes reflecting the flicker of a newly ignited hope. I hope this film, with Lucas's brilliance, conveys the message that even when darkness presses in, even when the walls seem to cave in, a single spark of hope can be our anchor, just like that sliver of sunlight I clung to in that canyon. Aaron's words hung heavy in the air, drawing both Danny and his wife into a shared moment of deep contemplation. The sweat-soaked tent, once a shield against the canyon's furnace breath, now sagged under the encroaching twilight. Hours had bled into dusk since Lucas's collapse, the sun's fiery gaze replaced by a spectral glow that painted the sandstone walls. He stirred, a tremor rippling through his exhausted frame, and then, with Lucas's eyes, heavy with exhaustion and the echoes of his ordeal, blinked open. They held a depth of contemplation, a well reflecting the tumultuous emotions swirling within. He knew, with the final act of that scene, the arduous climb of 127 hours had finally reached its peak. Yet, a tangled web of feelings knotted his gut. Relief, of course, at having pushed himself through the inferno of the canyon, both literal and metaphorical. But there was also a bittersweet pang, a sense of loss at relinquishing the man he'd become in the face of despair, the man who'd carved his survival from the rock itself. The weight of the final scene hung heavy in the air, a bittersweet echo of both triumph and farewell. Lucas knew with it, he wouldn't just be leaving the canyon behind. A part of him, the part that had breathed, bled, and clawed its way to survival as Aaron Ralston, wouldn't be returning. It had burrowed deep within him, a phantom limb resonating with the echoes of his ordeal. He had poured his heart and soul into the role, birthing a character that felt more than just skin deep. It was as if Aaron's spirit had taken root within him, whispering tales of resilience and despair from the caverns of his own being. Now, with the cameras stopped rolling, the applause fading, Lucas was left grappling with a tangled mess of emotions. "I gave it everything I had," he murmured to himself, his voice barely a whisper. Aaron's story became mine, lived and breathed through every cell. But why, then, does it feel like he's still clinging on, refusing to let go? A shiver of unease crept down Lucas's spine. Had his intense immersion in the role, the prolonged descent into Aaron Ralston's psyche, begun to blur the lines? The thought wasn't entirely alien. Whispers of actors in his previous life, consumed by their roles, teetering on the precipice of madness, had haunted his own journey. He knew, with a chilling certainty, that the line between performance and possession could blur, the boundaries thinning under the unforgiving gaze of the spotlight. He hadn't expected a reply, a flicker of response from the character he'd meticulously crafted within the mind workshop and the searing crucible of filming. Yet, as if summoned by the very doubt gnawing at him, Lucas felt a shift, a tremor in the landscape of his own mind. A melody flickered like a wisp of smoke in Lucas's mind, the echo of a song from a previous life. A ghost of a voice from another life. He saw himself, not as the actor who performed exceptionally well, but as a younger version in parallel reality, bathed in the smoky haze of a bar, microphone clutched in sweaty hands, pouring his soul into Coldplay's The Scientist. The memory, vivid and specific, unsettled him. Was it just nostalgia, a bittersweet echo of a past life, or something more? He let out a dry chuckle, a sound that resonated curiously in the quiet tent. "Mind if I add my old tune to the film, Aaron?" he murmured, half expecting, half dreading a response from the character that had become an unwelcome tenant in his mind. The silence stretched, heavy with anticipation, until "It wouldn't be out of place," came a voice, a whisper born of dust and desert winds, yet undeniably familiar. A melody of hope beneath the sun-baked scars. "Sing it, Lucas. Sing it for us both." The voice hit Lucas like a desert windstorm, rasping and raw, yet undeniably familiar. A jolt of shock ran through him, followed by a wry chuckle that felt hollow even to his own ears. He knew this wasn't some random memory, not a ghost from his bar-singing days. This was Aaron, weaving his way into the fabric of his mind, an unwelcome guest refusing to leave. The solution, a desperate hope flickering in the darkness, came as clear as a desert mirage: the song. He had to sing it, share it with the world, perhaps then Aaron would finally release him. Lucas knew his future knowledge of the song was a golden opportunity. He could technically claim ownership for composing it in this life. Registration might take months, but informing the director about his original song idea, conceived during filming, seemed like a safer bet. He'd present it as a gift, a personal touch inspired by the experience, ensuring his authorship without raising suspicions. The studio, he reasoned, wouldn't bat an eye at a bar singer's ballad. They were after big names, not heartfelt melodies born in the desert's embrace. Lucas pushed himself from the bed, the remnants of Aaron still clinging to his limbs like the dust of the canyon. It was evening, shadows stretching long across the camp as the crew huddled around a crackling fire, sharing laughter and food. He stepped out of the tent, and a chorus of greetings washed over him, warm and genuine. "Hey, Mr. Knight." A man with a sun-bleached t-shirt grinned, waving a steaming mug. "Join us, the group's about done." "Yeah, you must be famished after that last scene," another chimed in, clapping Lucas on the shoulder. "Come grab a plate, hero." Lucas returned the smiles, a genuine warmth seeping into the cracks of his exhaustion. He hadn't realized how much he craved this sense of camaraderie, the easy banter and shared laughter. As he settled among them, the anxieties of the day, the whispers of Aaron, faded into the background. He was Lucas again, just one of them, sharing stories and jokes beneath the twinkling desert sky. Chapter 42, Agreement. The Utah desert bled away in the rearview mirror, a silent testament to the ordeal they'd just left behind. Lucas, script clutched in his hands, fidgeted in the plush confines of the Fox Searchlight van. Finally, he took a breath. "Danny," he began, voice hesitant, "about that song idea." Danny's gaze, fixed on the vanishing landscape, flickered towards him. Surprise, tinged with a touch of amusement, played at the corners of his eyes, grunted noncommittally. "Yeah, the original score's in place. We've moved on." Lucas's fingers tightened around the script. "But it's not just any song," he insisted. "It came to me during filming, that hallucination scene with Aaron. The memories, the longing, it all just clicked. This song, it could be something special." Danny snorted. "Special, hey? You're an actor, Lucas, not a musician. Singing karaoke doesn't count." The words stung, a barb dipped in dismissiveness. Lucas felt his cheeks flush, a mix of anger and defiance rising within him. "It's more than karaoke," he retorted, voice trembling with barely suppressed emotion. "This song, it carries the heart of Aaron, his desperation. It could be the emotional core of the film." Danny sighed, a hint of exasperation in his voice. "Look, Lucas, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but this is a professional production. We have a plan, a budget. Adding some random song you cooked up on set isn't exactly." He paused, searching for the right words, strategically sound. "Please, Danny," Lucas pleaded, his voice raw with conviction. "This song, it's how I let Aaron go. It's the final piece of him I need to release." Danny, about to dismiss the idea with a dismissive wave, paused. He looked at Lucas, his gaze searching for the truth in the actor's eyes. "Really?" he asked, his voice low and serious. Lucas met his stare, his own resolve unwavering. "Yes," he said, each word etched with a quiet desperation. Danny's heart lurched. He wasn't blind to the transformation Lucas had undergone. The desert had etched its mark on the young man, not just on his skin, but in his soul. The rumors of actors consumed by their roles, their minds blurring with the characters they embodied, were not mere whispers. He saw it in Lucas's haunted eyes, the raw vulnerability that clung to him like desert dust. A conflicted sigh escaped Danny's lips. He pitied the young actor, his soul burdened by the echoes of a character who had become more than just lines on a script. To deny him this release, this final act of catharsis, felt wrong. It was more than just a song, it was a bridge between Aaron's despair and Lucas's freedom. As Danny listened to Lucas, a curious understanding settled over him. Lucas wasn't just advocating for a song, he was seeking release. Sharing this original composition seemed to be the final catharsis he needed to let go of the character of Aaron, one who'd clung to him with surprising tenacity. Whether Lucas was truly haunted by Aaron or simply driven by artistic passion, Danny couldn't say. But the raw conviction in the young actor's eyes stirred something within him. He wouldn't dismiss this as mere whimsy. This song, whatever its form or function, deserved a chance. Beyond the intriguing prospect of Aaron's story woven into the film's score, Danny genuinely admired Lucas's talent. The performance in 127 hours had been exceptional, leaving an undeniable mark. He wouldn't mind having Lucas in his corner, a reliable name to consider for future projects. Of course, consistency was key in this fickle industry. Would Lucas keep delivering? Only time would tell. For now, he'd prioritize helping Lucas release this song, this final piece of Aaron's lingering soul. Lucas, the tension draining from his shoulders, let out a relieved sigh. Danny's willingness to listen, to engage, relieved him. The Fox Searchlight van rumbled towards the nearby town in Utah, a temporary haven before the cruise flight back to the bright lights of Los Angeles. Lucas, still buzzing from the desert's raw energy, knew the journey wasn't quite over. Awaiting him in LA wasn't just the well-deserved paycheck for his grueling performance, but a chance to champion his original song for 127 hours. He and Danny, the director, had forged a bond in the canyon's crucible, and Lucas trusted Danny to be his voice in the studio's sterile halls. He knew the path to licensing wouldn't be smooth, but with Danny's weight behind him, the melody in his heart might just find its way onto the silver screen. The roar of the plane engines receded, replaced by the familiar Los Angeles hum. Stepping into the Fox Searchlight headquarters, Lucas felt a nervous thrum beneath his ribs. Days blurred into a whirlwind of studio sessions. "All right," Danny finally conceded, a touch of weariness in his voice. "Let's hear it. Play me your song, Lucas. Show me what Aaron left behind." Lucas nodded and performed the song for the director, and as Danny continued to listen, his eyes brightened with excitement. As Lucas poured his heart onto the recording, the raw emotion vibrated through the room. When Danny finally heard the finished track, a stunned silence blanketed the studio. Then, slow applause broke out, punctuated by hushed whispers of magic and brilliance. Lucas's chest swelled with a mixture of relief and pride. He had channeled Aaron's desperation, the canyon's loneliness, and woven it into a tapestry of melody that resonated deep within. Negotiations with the studio weren't without their barbs. Copyright secured, Lucas held the song's reins, a risky power play for a rising star. He offered a seemingly magnanimous gesture, the song, royalty-free, in exchange for all future profits. The executives, skeptical of its commercial appeal, readily agreed. Little did they know, they'd just signed away a potential gold mine. Little did they know, the song's soul-stirring power was about to rewrite the script. Whispers of award nominations, whispers of the prestigious Golden Globe in the future, began to swirl in place of fate. In Lucas's contract, a clause lay dormant, a promise waiting to be awakened, a hefty bonus for every nomination. As the studio executives, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath their feet, deliberated the film's final form, a quiet confidence flickered in Lucas's eyes. The desert's echoes might have faded, but the song they birthed had only just begun to sing. Chapter 43, Back to the Modern Family set. Singing Coldplay's The Scientist for his film 127 Hours marked a turning point for Lucas. As the song's emotional resonance washed over him, the meticulously crafted image of Aaron Ralston in his mind began to loosen its grip. He felt a sense of catharsis, a release from the intense immersion he'd experienced during the film's production. This cathartic moment, Lucas realized, signified the completion of his internal transformation. He had successfully embodied the character, wrestled with its complexities, and ultimately laid it to rest. The exorcism, as he metaphorically envisioned it, was complete. Freed from the lingering hold of Aaron Ralston, Lucas was ready to move forward, both as an actor and as an individual. Following his successful meeting with Fox Searchlight, Lucas secured the expected $180,000. His mind immediately turned to a specific investment, a high-end computer equipped with Bitcoin mining software. Compared to the future Lucas knew, mining in this era was significantly easier and less resource-intensive. The appeal was undeniable. But before diving headlong into the world of cryptocurrency, Lucas had another stop planned. 20th Century Fox headquarters, just a short walk from his current location at Fox Searchlight, beckoned. He had unfinished business there, and the close proximity made it a convenient next step. Lucas followed up with the contact he'd established regarding his potential renewal for the upcoming season of Modern Family. This presented an exciting opportunity, potentially requiring a shift in his current commitments. He discussed this development with his manager, Liza, acknowledging that it might impact his availability at the restaurant. Liza, understanding Lucas's progress in his acting career, was supportive of his potential opportunity and the resulting schedule change. Their flexible arrangement at the restaurant, without formal contracts, allowed for this smooth transition. Lucas expressed his gratitude for Liza's understanding and support as he pursued his career. October 2, 2009, and Modern Family's production team was eager to finalize Lucas's contract renewal. Lucas, however, opted to review the terms carefully. If they fell short of his expectations, he wouldn't hesitate to delay signing. Instead, he'd consider connecting with the agents who had reached out after his successful Modern Family pilot appearance. His goal? Finding an agent whose vision aligns with his own. Around noon, Lucas met with a representative from 20th Century Fox to discuss the renewal contract for his role in the show. The offer on the table was $5,000 per episode. Lucas considered it, aware that as a newcomer, ABC and 20th Century Fox might still be assessing his potential. He also acknowledged that the producers might not yet be aware of his recent film role in 127 Hours under Fox Searchlight, which could explain the offer being lower than those typically given to established guest stars. Lucas didn't immediately accept the offer. While the 20th Century Fox representative seemed confident of an agreement, Lucas wouldn't be swayed easily. He reached out to the agents who'd contacted him previously, but their phone conversations revealed limited ambitions for his career, suggesting shows he wasn't interested in. These interactions confirmed his reservations about their suitability. Unfazed by the lack of immediate results, Lucas remained patient. He believed that his forthcoming performance in 127 Hours would raise his profile and attract agents who better aligned with his vision. Selecting the right representation was critical, and he wouldn't settle for anything less than a partner who shared his aspirations. Over the following days, Lucas engaged in negotiations regarding his Modern Family contract renewal. While the initial offer was $5,000 per episode, he successfully secured a revised agreement for $8,000. Although this increase fell short of his ideal compensation, Lucas ultimately accepted the terms. From 20th Century Fox's perspective, finalizing the contract and ensuring timely production of the next episode remained the primary focus. While Lucas's negotiation efforts were acknowledged, the pressing need to move forward with filming likely played a significant role in their decision to accept his revised proposal. Lucas signed the contract and headed straight for the Modern Family set. Arriving amidst the controlled chaos of filming, he spotted Julie Bowen first. "Lucas! Great to have you back!" she exclaimed, pulling him into a warm hug. Lucas chuckled, returning the embrace. "Feels good to be back, Julie. Same set, same faces, even more laughs, I hope." His quip drew a hearty laugh from nearby. "Speaking of faces," boomed Ty Burrell, clapping Lucas on the shoulder. "Nice to see you came to terms with the suits, young man." Lucas shrugged, a playful smile on his lips. "Let's just say we found a common language." He flashed a wink at Ty, not wanting to dwell on the contract details. After all, the camaraderie on set was always worth more than any number on a sheet of paper. Lucas chatted with Julie and Ty for a bit, catching up and soaking in the familiar buzz of the set. His gaze then caught Sarah Hyland huddled over a script nearby. Approaching her, he offered a warm, "Hey Sarah, good to see you again." Sarah's head snapped up, a hint of surprise in her eyes. "Oh, hey Lucas," she replied, a slight blush creeping onto her cheeks. Clearing her throat, she added, "Yeah, good to be back." Lucas nodded, sensing a touch of nervousness. "Excited for our scenes this episode," he said, hoping to ease the tension. He launched into a discussion about their shared beats, his tone friendly and professional. As they talked, Lucas noted Sarah's gaze flitting around, never quite meeting his eye. He wondered if she was simply focused on the scene or if something else was on her mind. Regardless, he pressed on, eager to collaborate and ensure their on-screen chemistry remained electric. After hashing out the scene details with Sarah, Lucas found himself face-to-face with the show's creators, Steve Levitan and Christopher Lloyd. Diving into the script, Lucas eagerly discussed the scene where Dylan uses music to soothe the family's tension. Suddenly, a question from Stephen Levitan caught him off guard. "Lucas," he inquired, "do you have any musical background?" Lucas's surprise was genuine. "Yes, actually," he admitted, a touch of pride creeping into his voice. "I know music, and I even dabble in composition." In his past life, music had been his solace, but its popularity hadn't matched his passion. The writers exchanged a knowing glance. "Well, Lucas," Stephen said, a hint of excitement in his tone, "if you're a musician, why don't you compose the song Dylan sings in that scene?" Lucas's breath hitched. "Compose the song myself?" he echoed, his mind racing. He'd envisioned himself performing a pre-written piece, not crafting the melody from scratch. Both writers nodded enthusiastically. "We believe," Christopher explained, "that having you compose the song will add a unique layer of authenticity to the scene. Dylan's music comes from his soul, and yours can too." Lucas's initial surprise melted into a mix of trepidation and excitement. This was a chance to pour his own musicality into the character, to blur the lines between himself and Dylan. He'd always strived for authenticity, and this felt like a leap of faith, a chance to truly own his portrayal. "All right," he declared, a determined glint in his eyes. "Let's do this." Chapter 44, Episode, Incident. Lucas had just 3 days to create a song for his Dylan scene. While it might seem like a tight deadline, the production had a backup plan, a pre-composed song ready to use if Lucas couldn't meet the challenge. The show's creators, Stephen Levitan and Christopher Lloyd, were open to any kind of song, heartfelt, funny, or even a blend of both. Lucas' only priority was finding a good fit for the scene. Lucas scoured his past life memories for the perfect song to fit the Dylan scene. Selecting one that resonated, he decided to secure the song and filed for copyright. The Modern Family creators didn't bat an eye. Using the production's computer, Lucas navigated the U.S. Copyright Office website, downloaded the relevant form, and meticulously filled it out. Song title, creator, date, all documented. He attached a copy of the sheet music and, with a click, submitted the application. Finally, the $35 filing fee completed the process. Lucas presented his composed song to the Modern Family creators. As the first notes filled the room, their eyes widened in surprise. They knew Lucas could write, but this melodic offering surpassed their expectations. "Wow," Stephen exclaimed, genuine surprise lacing his voice. "This song is truly special. It's catchy, it's fitting, it's you." Christopher Lloyd, chin thoughtfully stroked, nodded in agreement. "Well done, Lucas. We need to get this recorded." Eager to rehearse with the cast, Lucas inquired about singing the song live. Stephen and Christopher exchanged glances before politely declining. "Let's keep it a surprise," Christopher explained. "Capturing their genuine reactions on camera will be priceless." Lucas, understanding their point, readily agreed. Filming night arrived, with the Dunphy house bustling with life for the scene. Lucas had meticulously rehearsed his lines with Sarah, Ty, and Julie, ensuring smooth collaboration. Only Dylan's musical moment remained unrehearsed with them, waiting to unfold organically on camera. The Modern Family cast remained blissfully unaware of Lucas's secret weapon, a song he'd prepared specifically for Dylan's scene. His portrayal of Dylan had grown noticeably stronger from the initial awkwardness, perhaps honed by the demanding yet rewarding experience of embodying Aaron Ralston in 127 hours. Nightfall arrived, and with it, the moment of truth. It was the night for Dylan's big entrance. With cameras rolling, Lucas, fully embodying the laid-back cool of Dylan, strolled up to the Dunphy house and rang the doorbell. Stepping inside, he was greeted by Ty, seamlessly portraying Phil's trademark enthusiasm. "D-Money, there he is. Come on in." Phil boomed, pulling Dylan into a hug. Dylan, channeling a perfect blend of coolness and goofiness, returned the greeting with a playful, "Hey, Dad Vader." Silence. The cast, mid-action, stood frozen. Sarah, as Haley, choked back a laugh, hand flying to her mouth. The unexpected Dad Vader nickname had thrown them off script. Cut. Jason Weiner's voice echoed through the set, momentarily suspending the Dunphy living room. As the crew scurried to reset, Jason's gaze landed on the cast, lingering on Lucas. "All right, who can explain this Dad Vader business?" His question carried a playful curiosity, not a hint of reprimand. Without a beat, fingers across the set pointed at Lucas. The young actor, palms raised in mock surrender, stammered, "I thought it might be a funny nickname for philosophy." His voice trailed off, fear of a ruined scene clouding his face. "Funny? It was hilarious." Ty chuckled, clapping Lucas on the back. "Just a bit unexpected, that's all. We weren't ready for your Darth Dunphy." Ty Burrell's spontaneous Darth Dunphy earned a hearty crew chuckle, but even funnier was Lucas's Dad Vader surprise for Phil. Julie, catching her breath, laughed softly, "We were not ready for that, Lucas." The cast, including Eric Stonestreet, Cameron, and Shelley Long, turned to Lucas with a mix of amusement and curiosity. He was a fresh face, and his first impression had them all intrigued. Jason Weiner pulled Lucas aside. "Keep the Dad Vader nickname," he grinned. Stephen and Christopher chimed in, agreeing the unexpected quirk added another layer of humor. The scene adapted, scripts rewritten, to accommodate Dylan's spontaneous jab. The cameras rolled again. This time, Dylan's first line, "Hey, Dad Vader," landed with a different thud. No guffaws, just a beat of surprised silence, then a ripple of awkward chuckles around the room. Phil, momentarily disarmed, sputtered, "D Vader? Where'd that come from?" The characters chuckled, the playful surprise of Dad Vader still lingering in the air. Dylan, unfazed, strolled in with a nonchalant "hey," a greeting met with equally cool haze all around. Deed, eyes twinkling over Dylan, leaned into Claire and whispered, "He's a very gentle soul, isn't he?" Claire, eyebrow raised, shot back, "You got that from one hey." The arrival of Jay and Gloria sent a ripple through the living room. Gloria's jaw clenched the moment her eyes landed on Deed, while Deed, sensing the icy air, launched into a preemptive apology. Just as Gloria seemed ready to melt under the charm offensive, offering a tentative hug, the gesture morphed into an unexpected chokehold. Gasps filled the room as Deed, with surprising agility, turned defensive cuddles into apparent strangulation. Chaos erupted in the blink of an eye. Characters scrambled to pull the two apart, a chorus of Gloria and Deed filling the air. I got Gloria, I got Gloria. Phil, in full dad mode, wrestled with a surprisingly feisty Gloria while Deed sputtered indignation. A muffled giggle escaped Claire, Julie Bowen, forcing another take. After a quick apology and reset, the cameras rolled again. The chaos continued with Gloria and Deed's bickering, their voices rising above the frantic shushing of the crew. But just as the scene threatened to spin out of control, a quiet figure stepped forward. But then, as if on cue, it was Dylan, played with a cool charm by Lucas, who finally stole the spotlight. Dylan, seizing the chaos like a surfer catching a wave, stepped into the fray. Actually, he drawled, eyes crinkling at Deed, seems pretty simple to me. He gestured towards her. You're reaching out, trying to hold on to something awesome. Haley, sensing a potential derailment, started, maybe you shouldn't, but Dylan, in full flow, rolled on. Look, I ain't used to this whole big family thing, he admitted, a flicker of vulnerability in his gaze. Back home, silence was practically a family heirloom. But the moment I saw Haley, he paused, then turned to Haley with a smile. Funny thing though, the moment I saw you, Haley, I knew I liked you. He chuckled, shaking his head. Sure, you're stunning and all, but it's more than that. You have this confidence. The kind that comes from being surrounded by a family like this. Haley's face flushed with pride as she glanced at her family, their faces softened by Dylan's words. He walked closer, his voice dropping to a gentler tone. You have this killer confidence, Haley. And you know what? I think it's contagious. He gestured towards Gloria, Mitchell, and even Deed, a twinkle in his eye. This whole family's got it. This spark. Dylan's speech resonated with Gloria as a foreigner, touched Mitchell as a gay man, and even struck a chord with Deed, who is a nutty person. The family, moved by Dylan's words, witnessed Phil shedding tears, while Claire emphasized the importance of accepting Dylan for Haley. A wave of warmth washed over the room, even Phil's eyes glistening with emotion. Claire reached for his hand, a small smile playing on her lips. I think we should just accept him for Haley, Phil, she whispered. He's perfect, Phil rasped, his voice thick with unspoken gratitude. Claire cleared her throat, shifting the focus. So, Dylan, you mentioned music, right? A soft chuckle rippled through the room as Claire gestured towards the guitar leaning against the wall. Mind sharing a song with us? Dylan's eyes crinkled at the corners. I might just have one for Haley. Phil, eager to please, grabbed the guitar and presented it to Dylan. Play something for us, bro, he boomed, a genuine grin splitting his face. Chapter 45, Unexpected Result. The Modern Family cameras whirred in the Dunphy house as Lucas, playing Dylan, sat beside Haley, played by Sarah Hyland. The rest of the cast's eyes were glued to Dylan, who clutched a guitar. A subtle tension hung in the air. Dylan seemed hesitant, his fingers nervously tracing the strings. The other actors leaned forward, curiosity and anticipation etched on their faces. With a deep breath, Dylan strummed the first chords, the unmistakable melody of Ed Sheeran's Perfect filling the room. The Modern Family crew hushed as Lucas, embodying Dylan, coaxed a warm melody from his guitar. Then, his voice filled the room, playful and inviting, I found a love, for me. He paused, eyes twinkling, before adding, gesture open and welcoming, darling, just dive right in and follow my lead. A ripple of surprise danced through the cast and crew. Dylan's voice, imbued with the guitar's gentle rhythm, held them spellbound, even momentarily silencing the cameraman. Well, I found a girl, beautiful and sweet, Dylan belted with a mixture of bravado and vulnerability, his guitar strumming a confident rhythm. As he reached the line, oh, I never knew you were the someone waiting for me, his voice cracked slightly, then soared higher, tinged with joyful surprise and a hint of disbelief. This newfound tenderness, this sense of serendipity, painted a fresh facet of Dylan not often seen. The cast and crew, even the unflappable director, fell silent. It wasn't that Lucas' performance was flawless, though his voice resonated with unexpected depth. It was the sheer emotional honesty, the unexpected vulnerability Dylan radiated, that drew them in. The catchy melody, once a backdrop, became a shared heartbeat, pulling them deeper into Lucas' world, into Dylan's newfound love story. Lucas, as Dylan continued to sing, and this time with more tenderness and intimacy. But darling, just kiss me slow. With a slight pause, he continued. Your heart is all I own, he crooned. And in your eyes, you're holding mine. Dylan's voice softened, a breathy whisper tinged with romance, as he sang, "'Cause we were just kids when we fell in love," his eyes meeting Sarah's. Haley, as Sarah, blushed under the unexpected gaze, a subtle smile playing on her lips. Not knowing what it was, Dylan's voice dipped again, a tender intimacy weaving through the melody. He leaned closer, his gaze unwavering. "I will not give you up this time," he crooned, the lyrics echoing a sentiment beyond the song. The camera caught the ripple of surprise among the cast. Ty, playing Phil, blinked in astonishment, Julie as Claire's jaw dropped slightly, and Ed, portraying Jay, exchanged a bewildered glance with Jesse as Mitchell. Sophia, playing Gloria, bit her lip, a hint of amusement dancing in her eyes. Their reactions, a mix of stunned silence and astonishment, were both comical and strangely touching. In Dylan's unexpected vulnerability, they saw a glimpse of something new, something deeper, and it left them speechless, their faces a canvas of unspoken emotions. "Baby, I'm dancing in the dark," Dylan crooned, his voice husky with a hint of yearning. "With you between my arms," his voice grew stronger, laced with possessiveness and a touch of vulnerability. The camera panned across the cast and crew. Sarah, cheeks flushed, mirrored Dylan's smile, a flicker of hope dancing in her eyes. Phil tilted his head, intrigued, while Claire raised an eyebrow, a playful smirk tugging at her lips. Mitchell and Cameron exchanged amused glances, while Jay and Sophia giggled, captivated by the unexpected turn. Barefoot on the grass, Dylan's voice softened again, tinged with nostalgia. He lifted one foot, toes curling as if feeling the cool earth beneath them, his face illuminated by a wistful memory. "Listening to our favorite song," he continued, a tender whisper filled with longing. "When you said you looked a mess," a playful chuckle, brushing his hair back with feigned concern. "I whispered underneath my breath," a conspiratorial lean, eyes searching Sarah's with a mischievous glint. "But you heard it," a triumphant grin, wink punctuated by a soft strum. "Darling, you look perfect tonight," a sincere gaze, voice steady yet hinting at vulnerability, the song morphing into a whispered truth. A triumphant grin split Dylan's face as Sarah blushed and looked away, then back at him with a hopeful flutter in her eyes. Could Dylan be singing to her? Haley's breath caught in her throat. The air crackled with a sudden spark, Dylan's words hanging heavy in the stunned silence. Her heart pounded against her ribs, disbelief warring with a dawning hope. Was this real? The crew held their breath. Cameras froze, capturing the unexpected moment unfolding. Whispers rippled through the set, speculation simmering in the air. Phil nudged Claire, a mischievous glint in his eye. Mitchell and Cameron exchanged knowing smiles. The tension coiled tighter, everyone waiting to see where this would lead. "Well, I found a woman, stronger than anyone I know," confidence returns, eyes sweeping the room before landing on Sarah, a newfound intensity holding a silent promise. "She shares my dreams, I hope that someday I'll share her home," a hopeful smile crinkling the corners of his eyes, reaching out an imaginary hand towards Sarah. "I found a lover, to carry more than just my secrets," voice deepening, fingers tapping the guitar in a steady rhythm, his gaze unwavering. "To carry love, to carry children of our own," a tender smile, eyes closed for a moment as he envisions their future. "We are still kids, but we're so in love, fighting against all odds, I know we'll be all right this time," a passionate plea, fists clenched, then a defiant grin as he meets Sarah's hopeful gaze. "Darling, just hold my hand, be my girl, I'll be your man, I see my future in your eyes," he stretches out a hand, voice full of conviction, eyes burning with desire. "Baby, I'm dancing in the dark," eyes closed, swaying gently, guitar mimicking the rhythm of a heartbeat. "With you between my arms," a soft smile as he imagines holding her close, arms circling his imaginary partner. Barefoot on the grass, a nostalgic sigh, feet tapping as if feeling the cool earth beneath them. "Listening to our favorite song, lost in the music," eyes fluttering open to meet Sarah's, a silent question hanging in the air. "When I saw you in that dress, looking so beautiful," gaze shifting to Sarah, awestruck and admiring. "I don't deserve this, darling, you look perfect tonight," a whisper filled with awe and gratitude, eyes never leaving hers. "Baby, I'm dancing in the dark, with you between my arms," the refrain repeats, his voice carrying newfound hope and a tenderness that lingers. Barefoot on the grass, listening to our favorite song, the notes fade, leaving a stunned silence hanging in the air. "I have faith in what I see, now I know I have met an angel in person, and she looks perfect," a final gaze towards Sarah, his voice barely a whisper, yet echoing in the hearts of everyone present. "I don't deserve this, you look perfect tonight," the closing line, sung not just to Sarah, but to everyone in the family as well. Music washed over the set, and as Dylan's voice filled the air, a ripple of surprise turned into something deeper. Mitchell and Cameron, bathed in the glow of shared memories, found their gazes lingering, a subtle tenderness replacing their usual playful banter. Across the room, Gloria and Jay exchanged a warm smile, the years slipping away in the soft melody. Even Phil and Claire, ever reliable anchors, couldn't help but share a knowing grin, a flicker of youthful romance rekindled in their eyes. The camera, like a silent witness, captured it all. Director Jason, his own surprise momentarily forgotten, barked orders with renewed focus, determined to do justice to this unexpected magic. He knew, in his gut, that this scene, born from a young man's borrowed voice, could become a modern family moment for the ages. Stephen and Christopher exchanged a stunned silence, their approving gazes dissolving into a mixture of awe and surprise. Neither had dared to imagine that their request for an original song from Lucas would yield such a powerful, unexpected result. It was beyond anything they could have dreamed. The scene, once envisioned as a comedic set piece, had blossomed into something far more profound. Lucas's song, raw and vulnerable, resonated with a depth that transcended humor. It was a love letter not just to Haley, but to the enduring bonds of family, the bittersweet beauty of growth, and the delicate dance of hope and uncertainty that defines life itself. While the absence of the anticipated laughs might leave a different kind of space in the episode, they knew in their hearts that this unexpected turn could have an even greater impact. This wasn't just a scene anymore, it was a moment, a shared experience that would linger in the hearts of the audience long after the credits rolled. Chapter 46, Mockumentary. The scene closed on a warm note. Deed and Gloria embraced, their years of tension finally thawing. The Dunphys and Pritchetts, united by Dylan's heartfelt song, stood shoulder to shoulder, a tangle of limbs and smiles. Haley, ever the sunshine, beamed from the corner. But all eyes were on Lucas. His rendition of the song had been unexpected, raw, and beautiful. Ty approached him, a question hanging in the air. "Didn't know you had pipes like that," Ty said, a hint of awe in his voice. Lucas chuckled, a touch of self-deprecation in his eyes. "Used to work at a bar," he admitted. It wasn't a lie. He'd spent countless hours behind the counter, crooning to drunken patrons in a previous life. And, oddly enough, the original Lucas, the one whose body he now inhabited, had also been a barfly, albeit in a different kind of establishment. "As it is a ladies' bar." Ed O'Neill ambled over, his hand finding Lucas's shoulder. "That was a hell of a song, kid," he rumbled. "Mind if I ask who wrote it?" Julie Bowen and Sofia Vergara, along with the rest of the cast, leaned in, curiosity etched on their faces. The song's emotional power had them all captivated. The Modern Family creators, Stephen and Christopher, who'd caught Ed's question, exchanged a knowing smile. Christopher spoke before Lucas could. "You might be surprised," he said, his voice laced with amusement. "Turns out, Lucas himself wrote it." Jaw drops and raised eyebrows greeted Christopher's announcement. All eyes turned to Lucas, alight with surprise and newfound respect. Lucas, however, met their gaze with a wry chuckle. He knew the truth, the borrowed melody echoing from a lifelong past. Now, facing Ed O'Neill, he couldn't help but be reminded of another Ed, one he knew from that life, a name that resonated with global fame, Ed Sheeran, the song's rightful owner. You wrote that?" Ed O'Neill stammered, his voice thick with disbelief. "Yeah, I did," Lucas admitted, a touch of self-consciousness lacing his voice. Ed looked at Lucas with a newfound reverence, the seasoned actor recognizing raw talent when he heard it, even if its origins were a little unorthodox. A flurry of impressed murmurs and wide eyes met Lucas's gaze. He felt a heat creep up his neck, the truth a secret hum just below the surface. Yet, he met their admiration with a practiced smile, accepting the praise from Ty, Julie, Sophia, and the rest of the cast like a seasoned performer. The encounter brought him closer to some, like Nolan Gould, who approached him with genuine awe. Ariel, eyes sparkling with curiosity, peppered him with questions about the song's inspiration. But Sarah, also drawn in, held back, her questions veiled in a quieter interest. Lucas felt a curious shift as he chatted with Sarah. Unlike the easy camaraderie of Dylan and Haley, their interaction was laced with a subtle tension, an undercurrent he couldn't quite decipher. Perhaps it was her reserved nature, a stark contrast to the cast's open admiration. Just then, Stephen and Christopher materialized beside him, their faces edged with something akin to excitement. "Lucas," Stephen began, his voice tinged with a conspiratorial glint, "we have an idea. We're planning a mockumentary, and we think you and Haley would be perfect for." Lucas's breath hitched. "A mockumentary? Him, alongside Haley?" His mind raced, picturing the possibilities and the potential pitfalls. The modern family living room buzzed with the quiet hum of the camera crew. Actors sprawled across plush couches, mugs of coffee in hand, the remnants of filming still clinging to their hair and laughter lines. Stephen and Christopher perched on the armrest facing Lucas, whose nervous energy crackled like static in the air. "Look, Lucas," Stephen started, his voice laced with understanding, "we know this wasn't part of your deal. Being interviewed for the mockumentary wasn't in your contract." He gestured to the cameras, their lenses trained on the casual scene unfolding. "But something special happened tonight. Your song, Dylan's song, it resonated with us all. And well," Christopher took over, a mischievous glint in his eye, "we think you and Haley would make perfect mockumentary gold." A wave of warmth washed over Lucas, erasing the knots of apprehension. He glanced at Sarah, whose smile held a hint of intrigue mirroring his own. This wasn't in the script, but the unexpected turn felt thrilling. "I'm in," he declared, his voice firm and surprisingly steady. Relief flooded Stephen and Christopher's faces. With a shared grin, they clapped their hands, and the living room transformed back into the set. Now, it was Dylan and Haley, not Lucas and Sarah, perched on the couch, ready to weave their mockumentary magic. The scene shifted back to the living room couch, where Dylan, still riding the high of his performance, flashed a playful grin at Haley. "You know," he confided to the camera, "perfect wasn't just the song's title. It's also how I'd describe." He leaned closer to Haley, his eyes twinkling, "the girl sitting right here." Haley, cheeks flushing, swatted him playfully. "Oh, Dylan. You're too much." "Just saying the truth," Dylan chuckled to the camera. "The song, you see, was kinda inspired by a certain someone." The camera lingered on their shared, knowing smiles, leaving the exact target of Dylan's serenade tantalizingly unclear. And another mockumentary featuring Julie as Claire and Ty as Phil took place. The spotlight is on Claire's persistent resistance to Dylan's charms, despite his impressive performance and composed song. Phil, playing his agreeable self, simply goes with the flow. If the episode was completely edited, the reason for why Claire voices her concerns, was she points out a moment where Dylan and Haley share a deep gaze after he finishes singing, as if they were about to devour each other. This observation becomes the focal point of a subsequent mockumentary segment featuring Claire and Phil, where Claire candidly expresses her opinions about the scene. "Phil, honey," Claire remarked to the camera, "did you see the way Dylan was looking at Haley? Practically devouring her with his eyes." Phil chuckled. "Just a young man expressing his appreciation, Claire. Nothing wrong with that." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Oh, please. Don't play innocent with me. Remember your appreciation for that waitress at the diner? Puppy dog eyes, the whole shebang." Phil sheepishly grinned. "Okay, maybe a little appreciation goes a long way. But trust me, Claire, Dylan's intentions are pure as, well, whatever passes for pure these days." Claire, unconvinced, gave the camera a side eye. "Mothers have eyes in the back of their heads, you know, Phil. And right now, those eyes tell me Dylan's up to something." The camera zoomed in on Claire's face, her expression a mix of amusement and motherly protectiveness. The scene ended on this intriguing note, leaving the viewers wondering about Dylan's motives and Claire's suspicions. Chapter 47, Considerations. Leaving the hustle of the modern family set behind, Lucas settled into his airplane seat, New York City beckoning on the horizon. His thoughts turned to the future, the hum of the engines a fitting backdrop for his ambitions. He envisioned a high-end computer, its whirring fans singing the sweet song of Bitcoin mining. Truth be told, if $1 million lay in his bank account, a spacious warehouse filled with gleaming rigs would be his playground. The potential profit, a future glittering with golden coins, almost drowned out the sensible voice whispering about caution. But reality, like the cramped legroom, was inescapable. His post-127 hours and Modern Family paychecks, a respectable $185,000, wouldn't stretch that far. Successfully mining Bitcoin hinges on three key factors: the processing power of a computer, the efficiency of a mining software, and the cost of electricity in a location. Currently, the profitability of Bitcoin mining can be questionable. High electricity costs can quickly eat into any potential gains, particularly for less powerful rigs. Additionally, poorly optimized software can significantly reduce the hash rate, further diminishing the chances of earning rewards. Mining Bitcoin involves electricity costs, but he wasn't overly concerned. Accumulating Bitcoin seemed advantageous to him, and he saw the potential to sell or trade them to individuals using Bitcoin casually, perhaps undervaluing its significance. Reflecting on a previous life's incident from 2010 when someone exchanged 10,000 Bitcoin for a pizza, Lucas considered purchasing Bitcoin as a sensible alternative to mining. Sunlight streamed through LaGuardia's grime-coated windows as Lucas disembarked. Trolleys clattered, announcements crackled, and a tide of weary travelers surged past, pulling suitcases and dragging jet lag. Lucas wove through the chaos, hailing a taxi with a practiced flick of his wrist. The yellow cab dropped Lucas at his apartment building. He lugged his suitcase inside and found Paul sprawled on the small new couch, a half-eaten pizza abandoned on the coffee table. "Yo," Lucas called out, dropping the bag with a thud. "Didn't expect you back yet." Paul, startled, looked up with a grin. "Hey, man. Flight got in early." He gestured to the pizza. "Want a slice?" Warning, it's cold and possibly haunted by the ghost of pepperoni past. Lucas chuckled. "Nah, I'm good. Just flew back from LA, feeling a bit jet-lagged." "How did the loser shoot go with Chris Evans?" Paul's grin widened. "Dude, it was epic. Evans is even funnier in person, and the director's got a real vision for this thing. I think it's gonna be huge." "Nice. You must be thrilled." Lucas refrained from bursting Paul's bubble, given the movie's lackluster performance in his previous life. "Yeah, all things considered, it wasn't bad," Paul conceded, nodding. "But enough about me, superstar. You're the one killing it. Leading role in a movie? I'm still stuck in the supporting actor purgatory." He gave Lucas a playful nudge, a hint of admiration in his eyes. Paul couldn't help but notice a change in Lucas. He seemed more confident, his eyes sparkling with a newfound energy. Maybe it was the success, or maybe something else that had simmered during his time away. Whatever it was a good look on his friend. They chatted for a while, catching up on lost time, before Lucas suggested, "You know what? I'm starving. Let's hit up a restaurant for some old-school comfort food." "My treat." As they walked into the familiar diner, Liza and Leonard erupted in cheers. "Lucas! Back in the flesh!" They boomed, engulfing him in warm hugs. They bombarded him with questions about his career, his eyes twinkling with genuine pride. After a moment, they noticed Paul standing beside him, a bit sheepish. "Hey, everyone," he said, "this is Paul, my friend and roommate." Liza and Leonard instantly extended their arms, welcoming him with open smiles. Lucas regaled Liza and the gang with stories from his trip, and of course, Modern Family was a hot topic. They peppered him with questions about his return, eyes wide with excitement. Lucas grinned. "It's just a quick pop-in," Lucas chuckled, "but hey, catch me on TV this October." Lucas stepped into the glass lobby of the Innovative Artists Building, sunlight slicing through the morning sky. Vincent's office held a welcoming warmth this time, a stark contrast to their last tense meeting. He chuckled as Lucas slid into the leather chair. Vincent greeted Lucas with a genuine warmth that surprised him. "Lucas, good to see you again. Congratulations on landing the lead in 127 hours. I have to admit, I didn't expect it," Vincent said, a smile crinkling his eyes. "Your Modern Family appearance was impressive, but Aaron Ralston in 127 hours? That's a whole new level." Initially, Vincent underestimated Lucas. Modern Family was a nice gig, but landing the demanding role of Aaron Ralston in 127 hours? That seemed like a stretch for the fresh-faced actor. So when Lucas casually confirmed the news, Vincent felt a genuine jolt of surprise. Innovative Artists had been keeping a close eye on him, considering a contract, but this catapulted Lucas into a different league. Perhaps the offer couldn't wait any longer. Vincent's eyebrows shot up when Lucas mentioned his 127 hours paycheck. $180,000 for a fresh-faced actor like him? A pang of regret tugged at Vincent. IAA could have secured a juicy commission if they'd already signed Lucas. But that was water under the bridge. The agency's open casting call for the role meant they wouldn't earn anything from Lucas unless he signed with them after landing the part. Shaking his head, Vincent decided to act. Lucas' talent, coupled with his recent success, was undeniable. Even landing the lead in a challenging independent film like 127 Hours spoke volumes. He grabbed his phone and dialed the agency's director. "Lucas has potential," he said, "and I think it's time we offered him a representation agreement." Lucas found the 127 Hours role through their open hub board, meant for fresh talent assessment. The agency wouldn't collect a commission, except for the standard audition fee Lucas had already paid. Shaking his head, Vincent knew it was time to act. He contacted the agency's leadership, advocating for a representation offer to Lucas. The demanding role in an independent film like 127 Hours was a clear indicator of Lucas' potential. They couldn't afford to miss out again. Chapter 48, Heartthrob. Lucas opted for a cutting-edge build, starting with a top-of-the-line Intel Core 2 quad processor, boasting clock speeds of 3 GHz. He paired it with the reigning king of graphics cards, the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 280, even if it wasn't yet optimized for mining. Splurging for a hefty 8 GB of RAM, Lucas also embraced the emerging technology of solid-state drives, SSDs. While pricier than traditional hard disk drives, HDDs, SSDs promised lightning-fast performance and superior data security, a trade-off Lucas deemed worthwhile. Lucas tackled the PC assembly project solo in his apartment. With Paul away, it was a one-man show. Yet, Lucas wasn't a newcomer to the intricate world of computer parts and connections. Hours later, with a satisfied sigh, he flicked the power switch. His high-end creation, a $2,180 testament to cutting-edge technology, hummed to life. First things first, Lucas downloaded Google Chrome, a familiar gateway to the digital world. Then came the official Bitcoin miner software. Back in 2009, a single Bitcoin held a humble value, $0.0008. A far cry from the dizzying heights of $30,000 to $40,000 it would one day reach. With each block minted rewarding 50 BTC, Lucas envisioned his high-end computer churning out a significant amount of Bitcoin. Operating 24/7, he could theoretically mine anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 BTC per day, a figure tempered by the reality of network fluctuations and mining difficulty. However, the constant operation presented challenges. Monitoring the computer around the clock was impractical. Of course, constant mining would drive up his electricity bill, an issue he could afford but preferred to avoid. The landlord wouldn't appreciate a sudden surge in power consumption. Therefore, Lucas planned a two-pronged approach. He would take advantage of the simpler mining landscape of 2009 while also strategically purchasing Bitcoin from existing holders. This diversified strategy aimed to capitalize on the promising future of the nascent cryptocurrency without exposing himself to unnecessary risks. Lucas envisioned a future beyond simply mining Bitcoin. He planned to develop a website that streamlined the exchange process, allowing users to easily convert their Bitcoin to dollars and receive them conveniently through PayPal. While the idea held promise, Lucas recognized the significant challenges ahead. Not only would he need to navigate the complexities of building such a platform, but also secure the necessary funding to bring his vision to life. Collecting enough capital to fuel this ambitious venture would be the first hurdle to overcome. On a crisp October night in 2009, Rachel flicked on the television in her cozy American living room. Excitement crackled in the air, for tonight was the new episode of Modern Family, a quirky new comedy promising to shake up the airwaves. For fans of the mockumentary genre, Wednesdays had become a favorite day. Modern Family promised a fresh take, following the hilarious and heartwarming antics of three blended families under one roof. Tonight, Rachel wouldn't miss it for the world. While Modern Family had captured the hearts of viewers like Rachel, there was a lingering disappointment. Dylan, the charming character introduced in the pilot, had been absent since. Fans, including Rachel, eagerly awaited his return. Each episode brought fresh laughs, yet the yearning for Dylan's return lingered. Then, as episode 4 unfolded, a familiar face finally graced the screen. There, amidst the Dunphy Pritchett family gathering, stood Dylan. His sun-kissed blonde hair and bright blue eyes, paired with a tall, athletic build, sent a ripple of excitement through the female audience, including Rachel. As the scene unfolded, Gloria and Deed's argument escalated, a simmering tension filling the room. Then, Dylan stepped forward, his voice cutting through the conflict. His words, infused with genuine empathy and a touch of humor, resonated with the family, bridging the gap and reminding them of their love. Rachel watched, a soft smile playing on her lips, her eyes drawn to Dylan's sincerity. "Oh, Dylan," she murmured under her breath, clutching the pillow closer. Later, Dylan settled on the couch, picking up his guitar. The unfamiliar chords filled the room, and his voice, imbued with a raw vulnerability, began to weave a melody. Rachel wasn't alone in her captivation, a collective hush fell over the audience as Dylan poured his soul into the song. "Well, I found a woman, stronger than anyone I know," he sang, his gaze sweeping across the room. "She shares my dreams, I hope that someday I'll share her home. I found a lover, to carry more than just my secrets, to carry love, to carry children of our own." While the lyrics raised a slight eyebrow from Claire, captured by the camera's keen eye, the audience found themselves caught between amusement and genuine admiration. The song, aimed at the teenage Hailey, possessed an undeniable beauty, even if its message might raise a few questions. Lucas, leaning in with rapt attention, couldn't help but be drawn into the scene's emotional pull. "Baby, I'm dancing in the dark," Dylan crooned, his voice a husky caress, "with you between my arms. Barefoot on the grass, listening to our favorite song." His gaze, tender yet playful, flitted across Hailey, then settled on Claire with a mischievous glint. "When I saw you in that dress, looking so beautiful, I don't deserve this. Darling, you look perfect tonight." The audience held their breath. The song, a captivating melody born from Dylan's raw talent, wove a spell of intimacy and longing. It felt like a secret shared, a glimpse into the actor's own soul. Rachel, like countless others, found herself swept away, fantasizing about Dylan's whispered promises and stolen glances. The lines blurred between character and actor, reality and fantasy, as Dylan's charisma painted a picture of love that resonated with every heart. Rachel wasn't alone in her daydream. As Dylan's voice filled the room, countless women found themselves swept away, dancing in the moonlight with him, barefoot on the grass, lost in the melody he'd woven. His blonde hair and blue eyes, captured by the camera's gaze, ignited a spark of longing in every heart, and the whispered "I don't deserve this, darling, you look perfect tonight" sent shivers down spines. A blush crept up Rachel's cheeks, a secret smile playing on her lips. The mockumentary that followed offered a jarring contrast. Dylan and Hailey's chemistry crackled on screen, sparking adoration in some viewers and envy in others, mostly among the female contingent who couldn't help but see Dylan as their own heartthrob. Even Claire's motherly protectiveness elicited chuckles from the audience. By the episode's end, the melody of Dylan's song had woven its way into the hearts of most main characters, amplifying the emotional resonance. The catchy melody had become a chorus, sung by the characters on screen and echoed by the audience. Rachel, wiping away a tear of laughter, shook her head. "Hailey better keep a close eye on him, Dylan's a ladies' man for sure." A pause, then a quiet murmur, "Though, I have to admit, I might have a bit of a crush myself." She wasn't alone. In that moment, many female viewers were swept away, lost in daydreams and fantasies, their hearts captivated by the captivating Dylan. For many, 2009 had just witnessed the birth of a new crush. For most, they knew him only as Dylan, the charming character who stole their hearts. But for those with keen eyes, the credits revealed the name behind the persona, Lucas Knight. And just like that, a new heartthrob was born. Chapter 49, Positive Response. Lucas remained oblivious to his newfound heartthrob status among Modern Family fans, as well as the critical buzz surrounding his episode. Titled The Incident, Episode 4 of the series drew an impressive audience of 11.085 million households, according to Nielsen ratings. With a 7.2/9% rating and a 5.0/9% share in the coveted 1849th demographic, it became one of Modern Family's most successful episodes. Critical reception was equally positive. Television critics widely acclaimed The Incident, with Buddy TV even ranking it as the 19th best episode of 2009, surpassing even the pilot episode of Glee. This accolade was largely attributed to Dylan's performance of his original song, Perfect, praised by Buddy TV as catchy, beautiful, and the highlight of the episode. Robert Canning of IGN lauded the episode with a 9.7/10 rating, hailing it as outstanding. He particularly praised Dylan's rendition of Perfect, adding playfully, "Outstanding episode, particularly Dylan's song Perfect. It's still stuck in my head. No official release, but I wish there was." Jason Hughes from TV Squad gave a positive review, commending Dylan's actor and Shelley Long. Hughes expressed admiration for Shelley Long's enduring comedic prowess and was impressed by Dylan's character, Lucas Knight, especially the unforgettable song that lingered in his mind. Donna Bowman of the AV Club awarded the episode an A, spotlighting Dylan's beautiful song as a showcase of both the show's potential and Lucas Knight's musical talent, expressing hope for more. Michael Slezak of Entertainment Weekly echoed the sentiment, emphasizing that Dylan's captivating song highlighted the show's potential and showcased Lucas Knight's musical talent. He expressed anticipation for more from the character. James Ponywozik of Time magazine praised the episode, specifically applauding Lucas Knight's song. Despite the acclaim, Variety's Brian Lowry criticized Deed's character as borderline grating and found the resolution somewhat saccharine. However, he still praised Dylan and his song. The Hollywood Reporter's Tim Goodman appreciated the humor and guest star performance but noted certain elements felt forced. Nonetheless, he praised Dylan's character and the exceptional scene featuring his performance. Despite some critics offering their critiques, there was unanimous praise for Dylan's character and the song Perfect. Episode 4 of Modern Family, The Incident, wasn't just funny, it became a viral phenomenon. While viewers chuckled at the Pritchett's and Dunphys' antics, one element truly captured their hearts, Dylan's song Perfect. Composed and performed by none other than Dylan's real-life portrayer, Lucas Knight, Perfect struck a chord with fans. Yahoo! Community threads exploded with praise for the song's beauty and emotional impact. Obsessed with Dylan's song. One user wrote, "Seriously, Dylan needs his own album ASAP." Another echoed, "Suddenly, Dylan wasn't just a quirky character on TV. He was a crush-worthy heartthrob, and Lucas Knight was catapulted into the spotlight." Fans frantically searched for information about the talented actor and musician, filling threads with questions like, "Who is the amazing actor playing Dylan Guy? Lucas Knight, everyone. Show him some love. Dylan's song is stuck in my head. Can we get Lucas Knight a record deal already?" One fan exclaimed. Another gushed, "Seriously, where has Lucas Knight been all my life? His voice is incredible." Fans, smitten by both the character and Knight's performance, scrambled to learn more. Answers flew, with Lucas Knight echoing through the site threads. But searching for Lucas Knight online proved, well, interesting. While his name graced the Modern Family IMDb page, details were scarce. Fans found him listed as the lead in a film project called 127 Hours, yet the film was shrouded in secrecy. No release date, no trailer, not even a picture. Some fans even joked it was a phantom film, a mere placeholder on his resume. Either way, many fans were excited to see him more in Modern Family. Even the non-Modern Family fans that just heard of Dylan's song called Perfect were gradually becoming a fan of Dylan or Lucas Knight because of the song. The internet buzzed after Modern Family's episode 4, where Dylan, played by Lucas Knight, serenaded the audience with his original song, Perfect. The song garnered critical acclaim and viewer adoration, putting Knight on the network's radar. ABC and 20th Century Fox initially expected Dylan to be a minor character, but the overwhelming positive response proved them wrong. Knight, a relative newcomer, was eclipsing even the show's established stars. The actor, playing Dylan, was attracting more online interest than some of the show's established characters. Perfect, composed and owned by Knight himself, became a key factor in his popularity. Recognizing Lucas's potential, ABC and the producers considered making Dylan a regular character. However, the show's creators had other plans. While acknowledging Dylan's appeal, they remained focused on the core Pritchett-Dunphy family dynamic. Additionally, Knight's contract stipulated a limited number of appearances, and forcing him into a regular role could violate its terms. Ultimately, Perfect and Lucas Knight's talented portrayal of Dylan created a memorable moment in Modern Family history, influencing both online discourse and the network's perspective. Even without becoming a regular, Dylan's impact on the show and the audience remains undeniable. Lucas sat glued to his computer screen, watching the progress of his Bitcoin mining program. Days of tireless processing had yielded a small fortune, 16,000 Bitcoins. In the future, this would be a king's ransom, enough to fund a life of carefree luxury in a paradise country of low prices. But in 2009, Lucas' digital treasure trove amounted to only $12. Undeterred, Lucas wasn't just mining, he was trading. He had recently scored a deal, acquiring 30,000 bitcoins for a paltry $18. While his digital assets hummed in the background, another success unfolded in the real world. Lucas's recent performance in Modern Family's episode The Incident was generating buzz. His friends, Liza, Leonard, and Samantha, cornered him at a restaurant, eager to discuss the song Perfect he had sung. The song's impact was undeniable. They loved it, urging him to record and release it. Lucas confirmed the song was indeed recorded during production, but not for public release. Samantha, with her experience in music, noted potential for improvement in a proper recording. Hesitant at first, Lucas eventually agreed to record it later, recognizing the potential Perfect held beyond the television screen. Chapter 50, Signing. Lucas Knight's success as Dylan in Modern Family didn't go unnoticed, and the prestigious Innovative Artists Agency, IAA, started to contact Lucas. Vincent, a seasoned agent from IAA, contacted Lucas with an intriguing proposition: representation. Now, with the news of Lucas's casting in the challenging role of Aaron Ralston for the upcoming 127 Hours and the buzz surrounding his debut song Perfect, Vincent knew it was time to extend an offer. IAA, a name synonymous with stardom, boasted a roster of A-list actors and actresses. Their keen eye for talent and knack for securing lucrative deals made them a coveted partner for any aspiring star. Their analysts had meticulously evaluated Lucas's potential, factoring in his performance trajectory, audience demand, and growing interest from producers. The combination of Lucas's endearing performance in Modern Family, his upcoming portrayal of the gritty mountain climber in 127 Hours, and his musical talent showcased in Perfect painted a picture of a multifaceted artist with boundless potential. The office buzzed with a quiet energy as Lucas settled into the plush leather chair across from Vincent. The IAA building, a modern marvel of glass and steel, felt like a world away from his cozy apartment. Vincent, his soon-to-be agent, laid out the representation agreement, a crisp document outlining their partnership, commission rates, and responsibilities. They delved into the details. Lucas was quite surprised by the generous offer. For a fresh-faced actor like him, it was a significant step up. More importantly, he could see the genuine care Vincent had for his career. The man who had initially been skeptical, his doubts etched into Lucas's memory, now spoke with conviction and a quiet confidence in his potential. Their conversation flowed past the legalities, into a frank discussion of Lucas's future. With 127 hours still months away, his calendar was largely blank. The thrill of landing the Aaron Ralston role had faded, replaced by a gnawing uncertainty. Signing with IAA, with its access to a wider pool of projects and the freedom it would bring, felt like the missing piece. While the commission fees were a part of the deal, Lucas understood their necessity. Having the IAA handle the logistics, negotiations, and endless paperwork would free him to focus on what he did best, acting. Besides, the agency's upfront signing bonus, though modest, provided a welcome cushion and a gesture of their faith in him. The agreement with Vincent also included a unique clause: mutual trust in project choices. Lucas recognized Vincent's years of experience and valued his insights, but he also knew his own instincts. Vincent, who had initially doubted Lucas's ability to handle the demanding role of Aaron Ralston, had been surprised and impressed by his performance. This shared experience fostered a new understanding, a willingness on Vincent's part to trust Lucas's judgment when it came to choosing roles, even if they seemed challenging for his current standing. Vincent decided to trust Lucas's judgment and his commitment to finding projects that resonated with him artistically. It wasn't a blank check, of course. They would still discuss each project, weighing potential pitfalls against artistic merit and career trajectory. But the agreement marked a shift in their dynamic, one that acknowledged Lucas's growing confidence and Vincent's evolving role as a supportive guide rather than a gatekeeper. The decision to sign with IAA lingered in Lucas's mind. 127 Hours, the project that had thrust him into the spotlight, was still months away from release, leaving his schedule barren. Months stretched before the film's release, and the calendar on his desk echoed the emptiness. His occasional visits to the IAA board hub, a bustling nerve center of aspiring actors and casting agents, hadn't yielded any projects that sparked his interest. Perhaps 127 Hours had been a stroke of luck, a one-time leap into a world he hadn't fully anticipated. The weight of inactivity gnawed at him. He craved the familiar burn of preparation, the nervous energy of auditions, the thrill of stepping into another character's shoes. The prospect of simply waiting, adrift in a sea of possibilities, felt suffocating. He envisioned Vincent, his soon-to-be agent, navigating the industry on his behalf. Vincent, with his seasoned eye and extensive network, could uncover projects that resonated with Lucas's artistic sensibilities and fit within his career trajectory. He could wade through the endless proposals, filtering out the generic and the uninspired, presenting Lucas with roles that held the potential to ignite his passion. A week after signing with IAA, the initial excitement had settled into a comfortable hum of anticipation. Lucas, ever the resourceful one, had been filling his free time by dabbling in Bitcoin. He'd check in with Vincent occasionally, eager for news of potential roles, but the agency's machinery moved at its own pace. While waiting, Lucas noticed a subtle shift in his New York experience. He'd catch second glances, fleeting moments of recognition in the bustling city streets. It was a new sensation, a whisper of something different. These fleeting encounters, once unnoticed, now sent a strange tingle down Lucas's spine. He was, it seemed, starting to garner attention, a whisper of fame brushing against his skin. Little did Lucas know, the ripple effect of his career was already spreading humbly. His song, Perfect, had begun to take root online. Amateur covers sprouted on YouTube, raw and heartfelt renditions sung with guitars and shaky cameras. Each one garnered thousands of views, a testament to the song's quiet power. These weren't just fans of Modern Family, these were listeners who had discovered Lucas through his music. They shared the videos, discussed the lyrics, and buzzed about the talented newcomer behind them. All this, unbeknownst to Lucas, was laying the groundwork for a career that was just beginning to blossom. Lucas was already building a fan base, a small but devoted group whose adoration fueled his creative fire. They found beauty in his lyrics, solace in his voice, and a spark of hope in his journey. His fans, albeit small in number, were the first sparks in a burgeoning fire, a reminder that his journey had only just begun.
Thanks for listening.